What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC 298. We got Alexander Volkanovski going against Ilia Topuria in a very good card. I'm really glad that we're out of the Apex. These last two couple cards have been kind of rough, kind of low-ish level, but this card is nothing like that, especially this main card. Merab Dvalishvili, Henry Cejudo. My favorite fight on the card, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez going against Roman Kopylov. We got Robert Whittaker versus what is supposed to be Paulo Costa. Probably not. It's interested to see who's going to step on short notice after Paulo Costa shows up. But we got Robert Whittaker on the card. And, yeah, the main event, Topuria, Volkanovski for the Featherweight title should be a fun fight as well. So, yeah, really looking forward to this card. Before we break it down, if you guys can please do a favor, leave a like here on the video. Subscribe to Pub Sports Radio. If you have not already, me and Weezy typically go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Last night, we did not go live because we were going against the Super Bowl, and competing against the Super Bowl is just not a good idea, and nobody would have watched. So we're doing it here after the Die Hard MMA podcast and looking forward to breaking it all down. Weezy, what is up? Are you looking forward to finally being out of the Apex, and we're getting a crowd this week, which is nice?
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. I mean, we got 298 this week, and then we've got the UFC event that's going to be at the in Vegas it's a UFC Mexico card in Vegas at the Sphere. So those are going to be two cards back to back. And then, of course, since we get two cards back to back, March 5th might be one of the worst cards of all time, which is going to be headlined by Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. So let's enjoy UFC 298. Let's enjoy UFC Mexico, which is taking place actually in Las Vegas, because there are two phenomenal events back to back. And I can't wait to chop up these fights with you in the chat, Brady, because there's some bangers on this card and there's some really interesting debutantes on this card as well.
Absolutely. Weezy, we're going to recap last night's card, or 2 nights ago's card, really quickly. I know some people don't like the recap. We got some pretty mean comments saying they hate the crying and the recaps, but I think most of the people do like the recap, so we'll do it real quick. I will kick us off. I felt like I read the card very good on Saturday. I went 10-3 on picks. I passed on a lot of the prelim fights. I was looking all week. I had Fernie, had Hyder Emil round 2, round 3 circled. Didn't play it. Round 2 was like 1,200. Round 3 was 1,500. Didn't play that. That hurt. I did have Hyder Emil in like 50% of my DraftKings lineups pretty much, which he was only like 12% owned. So that was good. I had Bogdan Guskov, the first fight I looked into. I had the round 1 KO circled, and he knocks him out in the first round, so missed on that as well. And then I had Max Griffin, underdog, plus 150 circled. Didn't bet it. He ends up going out there and winning a close fight. Passed on the Loma fight, took some Devin Clark late prop shots, a quarter unit on each, which I don't hate those. If that fight was 4 rounds, he would have finished Prochnio, but that was a terrible performance again from Devin Clark. I know a lot of people that played Devin Clark pretty heavy. I saw what you all were seeing, but Devin Clark shouldn't be minus 200 against anybody in that show. Didn't play anything in the Balaji Oki fight. I had Carlos Praches round 1, round 2, plus 112. Terrible bet, Weezy, but it hit. He was getting completely pieced up, and then Officer Giles just got flatlined. He needed some backup. Poor Officer Giles, man, he was looking good in that fight. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty poor bet that ended up hitting, which I kind of like when that happens sometimes. Rodolfo Vieira round 1, round 2, plus 195. Rodolfo Vieira could have been a max bet. He was going against a guy with a 36% takedown defense, and we saw he can be taken down, and you can't afford to get Rodolfo Vieira on top of you. You just can't afford that to happen. Had Rodriguez inside the distance, plus 155. That guy's a freaking animal. Shout out to Weezy. It was your ass shaving of the week. That was indeed an ass shaving. I had Dan Ige finish only minus 200, and then Dan Ige by knockout plus 320. Shout out to Dan Ige. Wish I went heavier on that knockout prop. Plus 320 for a Dan Ige knockout prop was incredible. So yeah, everything went well, Weezy, outside of 2 fights. The Michael Johnson fight, which, right, yeah, I could have expected that, but that fight was so weird. Darius Flowers showed up looking like he was attending a 60 and up YMCA Sunday morning karate class. I'm not sure what Darius Flowers was doing. He just it looked like he showed up to not get finished. He was like, I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to get finished this time. I've been finishing all my losses. I'm not going to go in there and fight. He looked terrible in that fight. And then Michael Johnson, he looked great. He wrestled even, and he was landing a lot of shots to the chest, which I typically like that when fighters aim for the chest. But every time he landed on Darius Flowers to the head, Darius Flowers gave like a terrible reaction. He was like wobbling every time he landed. So I would have liked to see Michael Johnson go to the head a little bit more. And then I had Michael Johnson round 2-3 props, which they were there. Michael Johnson by sub plus 1,800. It was there. Michael Johnson attempted multiple submissions, was looking for that north-south choke at the end of the second round. If there was 10 more seconds, he probably makes Darius Flowers tap. He was looking for like a Kimura in the third round, was looking for maybe a head and arm in the third round. Didn't quite get there, but yeah, plus 1,800. Michael Johnson went out there and at least tried for the sub. I'll take that all day. But yeah, that fight bit me. I was not expecting that fight to go the distance. And then I was looking really good going into the main event. I was up 2.8 units. And then the Piper fight goes 5 rounds. So that one bit me as well. So although the reads were very good, I thought, on Saturday, ended up being a very small losing night, down less than a half a unit, I think like 0.4 units. But just if the Piper fight finished, it's almost 4 units. And if the Johnson fight finished, it could have been upwards of 10 units, depending on whether he subbed them or got the second or third round finish as well. So was right there. Loved the reads, loved the picks, but just had a couple spots that really bit me. One thing I did do well, though, Weezy, was I did pass on the Ihor Brichek fight. I was looking at actually laying the chalk on like the under. I'm like, there's no way these guys go 7.5 minutes. They go 15. They go 15 minutes. The fight doesn't go as minus 1,000. The fight goes was like plus 750. So I did pass on that, and that was a great pass. But other than that, it was a interesting card, kind of a sketchy card, but it was a fun card nonetheless. Weezy, how'd your night go on Saturday?
Yeah, lower level card, small up day for me. But like you, Brady, it was kind of like one of those days where the reads were pretty solid, the bets were pretty good, but the outcome was just okay. The worst bet of the week for me was a 2-leg parlay where I had Zach Pauga's money line parlayed with the fight doesn't go to decision in the Johnson Flowers fight, so neither leg hit. But it was one of those situations that like I'd make that Pauga bet again. That was a decent matchup for him. He went out there, he kind of clipped early, he clinched up, and then he got Bogdan tired. He backed off, and I remember I was watching that fight, and I was going, "Okay, now you wrestle. Now you wrestle. You already tired him out when you clinched up." And this is why you don't listen to interviews. Please don't ever anybody try to talk me off a pick by telling me something somebody said in an interview. Zach Pauga said in an interview, "Yeah, I'm not stupid." He said, "I'm not stupid. I'm gonna take this guy down and not let him hit me early." Zach Pauga, ladies and gentlemen, is stupid. He is in fact stupid. Like, not only did he lie to you about about his game plan, about going out there to take this guy down, he actually lied to you about whether or not he was stupid. So, these are the things that we can't. Wouldn't you love to be able to take the joystick on these guys? You know what I'm saying? Take the controller and just be like, just start hitting X if that's the takedown button, or Y, whatever it is you video gamers do, and be like, all right, I would love to be able to take the video game controller on some of these guys and make them fight smart. But we can't do that at the end of the day. And, but, like I said, I'd make that bet again. I had 1.5 units on Michael Johnson's money line to win at minus 130. That cashed easily. I was saying Darius Flowers really bad at MMA all week. And he proved it. He absolutely proved it on Saturday. I had my favorite bet of the week, Brady, was the Dan Ige scorecards equals no action, the finish only prop. I bet it for 3 units. It should have been a 5-unit bet. I don't know why I didn't max bet that. Those are the spots that you have to smash. So that won me 1.5 units. And then these 3 losing bets that I had were all good reads. Hyder Emil to win in round 3. Yeah. He beat 7 shades of shit out of Fernie Garcia, beat him in round 2. That was a quarter unit at plus 1,500. I had Jeremiah Wells to win by decision at plus 260 for a half unit. I mean, that fight was a coin flip. It could have went either way. It just didn't go my way. So I lose a half unit instead of winning 1.3. So that was a very close bet. And then I also had Michael Johnson to win by submission, plus 1,800 for a quarter unit he finishes round 2 in a deep north-south choke that I thought might finish. Didn't quite get there. He got into good spots, but just showed why he's not a brilliant submission grappler. Even Darius Flowers was able to not get subbed by him. But yeah, I mean, up 0.65 units, 3 bets in the meal round 3, Wells by decision and Johnson by submission that were really close. And then a really good read on the Michael Johnson money line, a fantastic read on the Ige scorecards equals no action. So, yeah, I mean, a small winning week, though. I'd like those weeks to be up 5 units instead of 0.65, but we just got to stack them like flapjacks, Brady. Just put some winning events back to back to back here, and hopefully we can start with this one.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just glad we're comfortable between those 2 cards ever so slightly. And those 2 cards were just filled with like landmines, especially the card 2 weeks ago. Just landmine after landmine.
Yeah.
People have been getting destroyed. I mean, these fights have been tough, but we are out of the apex. We're going to be breaking down some UFC 298. I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. Victor DeJesus, first one in here. We got it. Dixon, Cider in here as well. We got Olajuwon. What is up? We got Dennis in the chat, Glenn Bott. We got Dimoob Org 7898. What is up? What is up? Spartacus, Snerius, Grateful Dude, SD Crusader. We got Daniel Benino, Glenn Bott, and who else we got up in here? I think I covered pretty much everybody. Shout out to you guys for hanging out with us. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe. Also check out the Pub Sports Radio weekly Pick'ems contest, free to enter. $100 the first week in and week out. Go to pubsportsradio.com and check out that Pick'ems contest. Yeah, Dixon, interested to see if you have any OnlyFans insight on this card. I'm very interested. All right, Weezy, I say we get into it. Oh, we got Hector, first time tuning in. Shout out to Hector. First time tuning in. Let's go. All right, we're going to start with the first fight of the card. We got Andrea Lee going against Miranda Maverick. We got Andrea Lee, 34 years old, 5'6" with a 69-inch reach. Maverick, 26 years old, 5'3" with a 65-inch reach. Maverick is going to be 8 years younger. She's going to be at a 3-inch height disadvantage and a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Lee is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Submission win against Antonina Shevchenko, knockout win against Cynthia Calvillo, and then decision losses to Viviane Araujo, Macy Barber, and Natalia Silva. As far as Miranda Maverick, she is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss to Blanchfield, submission win against Mazo, decision win against Shanna Young, decision loss against Jasmine Jasdavicius, and a submission win against that cheater, Priscilla Cachoeira, in the 3rd round. So, yeah, this is a fight where, Andrea Lee is a fighter that I think has always been, like, extremely underrated. I think she's a well-rounded, all-around fighter. She has good striking, good grappling. She can wrestle as well. And she is on a 3-fight skid. But Weezy, I remember you had a bet on Andrea Lee against Macy Barber at pretty decent plus money. I thought she beat Macy Barber. I really did. I thought she beat Macy Barber. It was a close fight regardless, though. But yeah, I think she's a solid fighter. I was going back and looking through kind of the record of Andrea Lee in some of her fights. And, there's a theme. She gets taken down a lot, 54% takedown defense, and taken down a couple times by Barber, Araujo, Calvillo, Lauren Murphy, Joanne Wood, and list goes on and on. Ashley Evans Smith, she gets taken down by everybody. The one fight that really concerned me though was a while ago at this point, but still terrible look. It was against 38-year-old Roxanne Modafferi, where Modafferi was just able to bully Lee down to the mat multiple times, control her on the ground. And I feel like Maverick, she's the younger fighter here by a decent margin, 8-9 years younger. Maverick's very physically strong. Maverick can wrestle. She can grapple. And I feel like that physicality is probably going to come into play here. I think Maverick does get the fight down to the mat a good amount of times. On the feet, I really do like the striking of Andrea Lee, but I feel like Maverick's just going to push her against the cage, take her down, and kind of win a decision. But this could be close. Like, you look at Andrea Lee's fights, a lot of her fights are very close. She has a lot of split decision wins or losses in the UFC. So this is not a fight I'm not sure I want to go out there and lay like minus 200 or whatnot on Miranda Maverick, wherever she is. But in terms of a pick, I will pick Maverick to go out there and probably edge out what should be a semi-competitive decision. Weezy, what are your thoughts on the first fight of the card?
Yeah, so this is a hard one to break down, because I feel like Miranda's probably the rightful favorite here. It's hard to bet against the fighter that's 8 years younger. It's hard to bet against the southpaw. It's hard to bet against the one that's got a little bit more activity in terms of trying to get takedowns. Miranda Maverick attempts about 5 per 15 minutes. Andrea Lee about 3.2. And guess what? Both these ladies have stank takedown defense. 54% for Lee, but it's even worse for Maverick at 42%. But in Maverick's defense, her only 2 losses are to Jazz Dvalishvili and Blanchfield. She was credited with a loss. Yeah, and this is what makes this fight interesting, is both of these ladies have had something placed inside of them after the 3rd round of their respective Macy Barber fights by 2 of the 3 judges at cage side. And it was not put in gently. Let's just put it that way, because Macy Barber has stolen victories from both Andrea Lee and Miranda Maverick, because thanks to the judges. So I think it's interesting that both these ladies that have been robbed by Barber now are facing off against each other here, but I see them being very well matched. I think they could both get takedowns, Brady. I think they both throw a lot of volume and are fairly accurate at range. They both have got pretty good defense numbers. Neither one of them is like Florin ladies, but both of them are very durable on the feet. So I think that while this is on the feet at distance striking range, it's going to be close. But I'm going to favor the experience, the height, the length of Andrea Lee at distance striking range. Which one of these ladies gets the takedowns and wins the minutes against the cage and on the ground? I think if you can answer that question correctly, I think you're going to know what side to bet on here. But I mean, I kind of feel like at this particular price, it's dog or pass here. Yeah, I know I'd be on the much older lady here at 8 years older, but I'm getting the taller lady. I'm getting the more experienced lady. I'm getting the longer lady. And both of these ladies have had a difficult time in stuffing takedowns. And when you look at the efficiency ratings in the grappling of both of these ladies, Andrea Lee's grappling efficiency outrates Miranda Maverick's, but Miranda Maverick has had some really tough matchups against top-notch wrestlers, grapplers in Blanchfield and Jazz Dvalishvili, while we haven't seen Lee. You know, I mean, like Lee getting dominated by Modafferi a couple of times is a lot different than Miranda Maverick getting dominated by Aaron Blanchfield and Jasmine Jazz Dvalishvili.
Yeah, I mean, Lee's just inconsistent. Like, some fights she looks really good, some fights she looks really bad. And apparently there is an OnlyFans alert, Weezy, and I did confirm that there is. Andrea Lee does have an OnlyFans.
Really? Okay. But is it, you know, because I think we have to ask Dixon about this. Is it a one where she's putting naked pictures out there?
No.
Or is it okay? So it is an OnlyFans. It's like she's raising some money as a fighter for herself, but it's not like ass pics and stuff like that.
Well, there's ass pics, but they're not full nude.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's, you know what? I'm not the professional on this. We're gonna have to ask Dixon if that actually constitutes an OnlyFans fade.
Well, last week it was Bruna Brazil with the OnlyFans fade.
Well, you know what? Uncle Weezy's Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week was the Bruna Brazil plus 3.5 points handicap, and she covered that at plus 115 by losing 29-28 on all 3 cards. You could still lose the fight, but chalk up a win with that plus 3.5 points handicap. And we did that. But yeah, that was a pretty clear win for Loma.
Dixon, I'm not bringing up that comment. Do you see that, Weezy, in the chat?
I see it. Yeah. We're not bringing that up. This is a family show, ladies and gentlemen. Pub Sports Radio, a family channel.
Yes, it is a family show. Let's keep it PG. Let's keep it PG, Dixon. All right. That's why they call him Dixon Cider. There you go. All right. We'll move on to the next fight. We have a weird fight here, man. We got Oban Elliott going against Val Woodburn. We got Elliott, 26 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. Val Woodburn, 30 years old, 5'8" with a 74-inch reach. Oban Elliott, 4 years younger. He's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. We got Oban Elliott, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision win against Kalik Britu on the Contender Series. As far as Val Woodburn, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Made his debut against Bo Nickel and got knocked out in like 30 seconds. So, Yeah, Oban Elliott trains, I think, with Jack Shore at Shore MMA. I think he's good. I think Oban Elliott's a pretty good fighter. I actually do like his striking, his combinations, a little hittable, but tough guy. Shin could be a potential concern, though. He has been knocked out in both of his losses. He's been knocked out, so that's a concern. But yeah, he can wrestle, he can grapple. Cardio seems to be pretty good, and he's probably only going to get better, right? So yeah, Oban Elliott, there's a lot to like. Besides, maybe the durability could be an issue. Finishing both of his losses in that Brito fight, I went back and watched that fight, and I think it was the second round. Brito hurts Oban Elliott very badly, and the ref was very close to stopping the fight. The ref was like looking to stop the fight. He was like, "Fighter, fight back, show me something." Like he was about to stop the fight, but Elliott was able to survive. But he very well could have got finished in that fight. As far as Val Woodburn, we just don't know anything about this guy. I mean, he's going out there and beating really low-level competition. I really haven't seen anybody take him down or control him for what it's worth. He has solid power. The guy's built like a truck, hits like a truck. So the one thing is I just can't lay minus 300 on Oban Elliott. I think it's too wide. Like, what if Woodburn is able to stuff these takedowns? What if Woodburn does land a big shot? So I'm gonna take Elliott, but with like not a ton of confidence for minus 300 favorite. I think he's the biggest or second biggest favorite on the card. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, PSSA brings up a great point in the chat. I mean, Valentine Woodburn on the week of Valentine's Day, is that a plus EV thing? If you're named Valentine and you're fighting on the week of Valentine's Day, is that something? I mean, should you be that big of an underdog?
Good point.
And even if it wasn't Valentine's Day, should he be this big of an underdog to Oban Elliott? But I guess maybe because we just don't, it's like you said, we don't know. Like, who are Valentine Woodburn's wins against? He's beaten some guys with some really great nicknames. For instance, Brandon Boss Hog Johnson. That's a great nickname. Boss Hog, character on a show from my youth called The Dukes of Hazzard. He was a real prick on that show, and it's a great nickname. Boss Hog was a great character back in the 80s on The Dukes of Hazzard. He also beat the Black Santa, Miles Amos, by knockout. But they're great nicknames, but they're not particularly great fighters. Brandon Boss Hog Johnson is a bare knuckle boxer. Miles Amos is a pretty good wrestler, but not much else. We saw somebody else whoop up on Miles Amos pretty good. A UFC heavyweight in Carl Williams actually beat him as well. But Woodburn, like you say, man, there's some power there, but his striking kind of reminds me of Darius Flowers a little bit.
Oh,
He kind of closes his eyes and swings as hard as he can and just hopes for the best. But there's no technical skill there. And let me tell you, if you're a fan of cage pushing, Brady, you're going to love Valentine Woodburn, because this guy, he's built like a fire hydrant. He's about as hard to move as a fire hydrant, and he can just like put you up against the cage and just hold you there as long as he feels like it, because the guy could probably squat a bus. I mean, if you look at the way that this dude is built, I mean, he's an absolute unit. So it's an interesting fight, because Oban, when he lost, those two KO losses are not KOs on the feet. They were ground and pound knockouts at the hands of Flaminas and Michael Figlak, both of them in Cage Warriors. And Flaminas is a really good grappler. Michael Figlak is a great pressure fighter and wrestler and top control guy. And Valentine Woodburn's a guy who can get in on your hips and take you for a ride, because he's strong. He can pick you up, he can throw you down, he can get on top of you, but he's not like this great control time wrestler. He doesn't have this great wrestling background. Oban's definitely fought the much better brand of competition. Oban is the better boxer. Oban is probably the better wrestler as well. He's definitely fought the much better brand of competition here. But we've seen Oban lose rounds, lose fights. He's not this invincible guy that's going out there and winning a bunch of minutes on the regional scene. He's winning fights, frankly, where he's actually getting his ass kicked at certain points during those fights. So, this is a big stay away from me. Maybe a small shot on Valentine's money line, just because, or Valentine by KO, because the guy looks like he could knock out a horse. So maybe that's the way you play this one. But laying this kind of juice on Oban Elliott, it just seems a little bit irresponsible as little as we know about Valentin Woodburn.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to mention is Val Woodburn is coming down a weight class for the first time in his career. This fight is going to be at welterweight. He has a fight at light heavyweight, has some catch weights at 195. The rest are middleweight fights. So this is a big drop down, 15 pounds here to welterweight. So kind of want to see this guy on the scales. But what's this guy going to look like at welterweight? This guy is jacked up at middleweight.
I don't know, man. He might have to like lose some muscle.
Yeah,
I don't know how he's making 170.
Yeah.
This guy is just busting out of his skin. He kind of looks like a middleweight William Knight. That's what he looks like.
Yeah, that is crazy. It doesn't look like he has any weight to lose in his middleweight fights. That's for sure.
No, he doesn't. No, I mean, this guy is built. So that's going to be something that, I'm really glad that you brought that up, Brady, because that's something we got to see what Woodburn looks like on the scale here. Could be a Flowers type situation where he was cutting down to 155 for the first time in his career. And he's talking on Twitter right now like he's still feeling the effects of that. So we'll see how Woodburn deals with it too.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, this price tag just crazy to me. Oban Elliott minus 300, Valentine Woodburn plus 250. There's just a ton of unknowns about Val Woodburn. What's his takedown defense like? What's his get up game like? What's it going to be like when he fights somebody like Oban Elliott, who has fought some good guys? And yeah, you got to throw the Bo Nickel fight out the window. Like that tells me absolutely nothing about Val Woodburn, just nothing. So yeah, minus 300 for Elliott. I will not be touching that. Val Woodburn by KO could be interesting considering this guy could, like you said, knock out a horse. It is. Oh, yep, they're onto it, man. Plus 300. He's like,
and what's his money line?
Plus 250. What?
Oh, come on, Bet Online. Can you please show a little bit of gumption for once in your lives?
Oh,
plus wow. 300 on a KO prop for a young man who's plus 250. That is ridiculous.
That's terrible. Goodness. So the over under set at 2.5 rounds, the over 2.5 plus 155. The under 2.5 is minus 185. I don't know, man. Maybe the under, maybe a Woodburn KO. Elliott, maybe like a late-ish finish if Woodburn starts to gas out. The weight cut gets to him. So I think I lean violence, but I don't know about minus 220 for the fight. Doesn't go. Any thoughts on the total for you?
Not touching it, dude. I could see going either way with this bet and having a really good reason for either. You like the under, you like Woodburn's power, you like his inexperience and the weight cut issues. If you like the over, you like the fact that Woodburn kind of isn't really comfortable at range, so he kind of prefers to cage push. And if he just cage pushes, and we've only seen Oban Elliott finish 5 of his 9 pro wins, so maybe that's a pretty good reason that it actually goes over. So, I mean, I'm not touching it. I think we got to find out more about both of these guys. This is a great opportunity to do exactly that and fight and bet on some of these more known quantities. Whether they're time props on certain fights that we're going to talk about going forward, Brady, or whether they're just fighters where we know we've got good stylistic matchups where we can maybe exploit a prop or a time prop that sticks out a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I like violence, but I think they're onto it. Both these guys have been finished in all their losses. Oban Elliott has shown some durability issues. Val Woodburn has shown some durability issues. I mean, I know it's Bo Nickel, but getting knocked out in 20 seconds by him wasn't the best look in the world. But yeah, they're onto it. Fight doesn't go minus 220. I don't want to be laying that price tag on a lot of unknowns here. All right, moving on. We got Danny Barlow going against Josh Quinlan. We got Barlow, 28 years old, 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. Josh Quinlan, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. Barlow is going to be 2 years younger. He's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 7-inch reach advantage. Josh Quinlan is 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. Had I think it was a Contender Series win that was overturned. Won that fight by knockout. He knocked out poor Jason Witt in the first round. Then he lost a decision to Trey Waters. As far as Danny Barlow, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Had a knockout win in the first round on the Contender Series. So Danny Barlow I forget who he was supposed to fight, but his opponent pulled out in steps in Josh Quinlan. And I'm not sure why. So Quinlan fought kind of a very similar fighter in a sense that he fought Trey Waters, who's like a long, really rangy guy. Trey Waters has a 7-inch reach or 78-inch reach. Now he's taken on Barlow, who has an even bigger reach than Trey Waters. And we saw in that Waters fight, Josh Quinlan's striking defense is just terrible. You see it right there in the stats. 51% striking defense at distance. Trey Water was busting him up. And Trey Water, I like the guy. I think he's a good striker, but in terms of power, I think there's a significant difference between Danny Barlow, who hits like an absolute truck, and Trey Waters in terms of power. Barlow hits much, much harder. So not only is Barlow going to have that reach that Quinlan seems to struggle with, Barlow's going to have that insane power as well. And although Quinlan has not been knocked out yet, I kind of see Barlow landing a big shot here early and finding the chin of Josh Quinlan. So yeah, I like Barlow here. He's a decent sized favorite, which is always scary with these Contender Series guys making their debuts. But I'll pick Barlow to win this fight, and I think it could come early as well. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Barlow's a couple years younger, a couple inches taller, 7-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw. He's got a similar amount of pro experience compared to Quinlan, and he's just a sniper. Really, that's what he is. He's not a high volume guy at all. And Barlow is a guy who shows very little urgency, Brady. He just doesn't do much, actually. But the thing is, when he does do something, he's so accurate, he's so precise, and he's so powerful. And he brings things that you can't teach, like being a 6'2", lightweight, welterweight with a 79-inch reach. I mean, these are things that you just very rarely see at that division. And Danny Barlow's nickname is Left Hand from God. And it really means that this guy is precise with that straight left hand. It is something that is extremely accurate, extremely powerful. I wish he threw it more, but he doesn't show a lot of urgency because he has so much faith in being able to find that big shot. If you make any kind of a mistake, if you get out over your toes, if you try to pressure too much to close the distance against this guy, it's a tough stylistic matchup for Quinlan because, like you said, we just saw him struggle with a similar opponent in Waters, but Barlow is just Waters with power. That's all he is. I mean, like, Waters is a good striker. He uses his length well, but this guy Barlow, when he lands, man, it's pretty nasty when he lands. And he just doesn't quite show the urgency, but I think that Barlow's win condition here is a knockout in the first 7.5 minutes. So I actually bet the under 1.5 rounds here. It was something that I was looking at when it opened up at plus 100. And I was thinking, man, because Quinlan, after that last performance, if he's not back on the juice yet, he might decide to get back on it because he doesn't look like the same fighter. This is not a guy who's out there winning minutes. Josh Quinlan's never won a decision in his life. So he does need to land that big shot. He does need to close that distance, get inside, and use that steroid power, in order to find the big shot that finishes the fight. We just saw him go 1 of 8 on takedowns, in his 2 UFC fights. So it's not like he's going to out-grapple you or be a murderer, in the grappling exchanges here. So, maybe he could find some success with the wrestling, but I like Barlow's precision with that left hand. He's got some great kicks as well as the punches. He's not just a boxer. He's definitely a kickboxer. I think he's going to be able to use that length really well. I think he's the more powerful fighter. And I think what Josh is going to have to do in order to find success, which is close the distance and maybe get a little bit reckless, Barlow's very patient, and he's just waiting for you to do that. And I think that when Quinlan does do that, Barlow's going to find the mark, get him out of there early. I got under 1.5 rounds, 1.5 units at plus 145. I like that bet. I think that's how Barlow wins this. And Quinlan still does have that early power as well, as we've seen him absolutely melt dudes when he gets in that pocket and swings. So I could see either one of these guys getting an early finish. That's my bet on this fight.
Yep, I like it as well. So Barlow opened up minus 175, is currently minus 193. Quinlan opened up plus 150, currently plus 168. And yeah, weird alignment with this total. So the total opened up minus 125 to the under, And when I saw it, I think yesterday, it was sitting at plus 100. I'm like, plus 100 for a Danny Barlow fight. I don't hate that. And then it moved to plus 145. So money did come in on the overs here, which is interesting. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be the under 1.5 would be the one thing I'd look at, and that's really about it in this fight. Anything else sticking out for you? Just that under.
I like that under a lot. I think Danny Barlow by first round KO or by second round KO are pretty good props to look at. Like I say, he's patient, man. He's a patient striker. So we'll see what kind of opportunities Josh presents him with, because Josh was very cautious in that Waters fight, but he just got absolutely drowned in volume and in strikes, and a 51% distance striking defense against somebody as powerful and precise as Barlow is why Barlow's a big favorite as a debutant here.
Yep, absolutely. Dixon's fraud meter is going off with Quinlan Vinicius Salvador levels. What do you think?
Vinicius Salvador. I think we're going to see Salvador on that absolute trash dumpster fire March 5th card. Who do you bring in when you have a trash card like that? You bring in guys like Muhammad Yahya. You bring in guys like Brandon Merab. You bring in guys like Vinicius Salvador. I think we might even see Dennis Bondar make an appearance on that card, Brady. So we're going to have frauds galore lining up the fight at the Apex on March 5th on a card that nobody cares about, and Vinicius Salvador will be amongst them.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to doing all the research and breaking that one down. But I'm looking forward to breaking this one down, Weezy. We got Zhang Mingyang going against Brenton Ribeiro. We got Zhang, 25 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Brenton Ribeiro, 27 years old, 6'3" with a 81-inch reach. We got Zhang, who's 2 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage or disadvantage, and then a 6-inch reach disadvantage. Zhang Mingyang, 5-0 in his last 5 fights, all knockout wins. He had a knockout win against George Tokus, and that was a while ago at this point. I think it was like almost 2 years ago, and it was on Road to UFC. As far as Brenton Ribeiro, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a first-round knockout win on the Contender Series. And yeah, this is a fight where, I don't know, I feel like it's a fun fight. I feel like the matchmakers did an incredible job in terms of, this fight is going to be extremely exciting. Both these guys are super dangerous. Somebody's probably going to get flatline in the first 5 minutes. But I'm just not sold on either of these guys. Zhang Mingyang, he's a young guy, 25 years old. So he's taken 2 years off. He has fought absolutely nobody. We don't know much about him. The level of competition is about as bad as it gets. And this guy is 16-6. Like, this guy has 6 losses to some of the worst competition you'd ever see. To his credit, though, he was, 17, 18, 19 years old at the time of a lot of these losses, but still, not the best look. The layoff's a question mark. Has he been improving in the time off? I was checking his Instagram. It looks like he's doing some work at the PI, doing some work at Extreme Couture as well. So I'm not sure if he did his camp there, if he's just checking it out. But yeah, I'm curious to see the potential improvements that, Zhang made, because the last time we saw him fight, I think he was around 23 years old at the time. Brenton Ribeiro, I think this guy's a fun fighter. He's all offense, no defense, very hittable, very sloppy, on the mat. I mean, I've seen this guy give a position like it's his job, and maybe it's not going to be too much of a factor in this fight. But yeah, I mean, in pretty much every single fight I watched, he was, going for subs, ending up on bottom, and it wasn't really the best look. But is Zhang the guy that's going to really attack that weakness of his? I'm not so sure. I kind of feel like these guys are just going to stand and bang into one-man falls here. I feel like nobody should be favored in this fight. And for that reason, I lean towards the dog and Ribeiro. I like the reach advantage. I think Zhang might have a height advantage here. I know it says Zhang 6'2", but I saw a picture of Zhang next to Magomed Ankalaev, who's 6'3", and Zhang was like towering over Ankalaev. So I kind of think he's like 6'5", to be honest. But yeah, Ribeiro does have a 6-inch reach advantage. He hits like a truck. I think it's going to come down to whoever lands first. If there's takedowns in this fight, it probably comes from Ribeiro as well. So give me Ribeiro, first round knockout, 0 confidence. I'm not touching this fight, but I'm going to enjoy watching it. It's a fun matchup stylistically. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I just did the little calculation here because we got Zhang with 22 professional fights, Ribeiro 21, and you add up the cage times and you get a weighted average on their 43 professional fights. The weighted average is 3.87 minutes.
You said 3 minutes?
3.87 minutes is the weighted average of these guys combined 43 professional fights. So they fight like they're triple parked and have dinner reservations at the hottest spot in town. And those dinner reservations are starting in 15 minutes, and they are not going to let you get your table if you show up late. So both of these guys fight like that. Both of these guys are not what we would call durable, Brady. As we've seen Brenson Ribeiro be finishing 4 of his 5 losses. We've seen Minyang Zhang be finished in 5 of his 6 losses. Brenson Ribeiro has 1 loss by decision, as does Zhang. Both of these guys have only been a decision once in their career. And what's hilarious is that Brenson Ribeiro should have never been a decision. He lost a fight in Russia in M1 Global, I think it was, or it might have been Fight Nights Global, where he had his opponent in a triangle choke. The opponent taps clean as day, and he lets open the choke, and then the ref comes in and says that the guy didn't tap. The most confused guy wasn't even Ribeiro. It was the opponent who actually looked up at the ref like, yeah, dude, I tapped. And then Lucas Bosowski, who's a referee who was actually reffed in the UFC, made him keep fighting. And the fight went the full 15, and this Russian guy got takedowns in the second and the third to actually wind up winning a majority decision. But even that fight was a fight that Ribeiro won cleanly by triangle choke, absolutely finished the dude in the first round. So these guys have really only had 1 fight out of a combined 43 that has ever seen the scorecards. So Ribeiro, the holes in his game is that he's awful off his back. If you take this guy down, he's going to try to sweep you. He's going to try to go for some submissions. But if you're the type of guy who can get some control time and land ground and pound, you can pound this dude's head through the canvas. And Zhang is a guy who's been knocked out 3 times, submitted twice. You know, he's lost to Askar Mozarov, you know, who faked his record. That's a guy who's got to win over Minyang Zhang. I mean, he got knocked out clean left hook by John Vake on the regional scene. But like you said, Brady, this kid is still only 25 years old, and his pro career has lasted over 9 years. So that means he turned pro at the age of 16. And a lot of these fights that he lost, he was losing when he was 19, 20 years old. So now that he's 25, he's finally out of China and training with some real fighters. You know, we could see big improvements from Zhang. But in my opinion, we're going to need to see big improvements, because when you look at this guy's Tapology profile and look at these clowns that he's been beating, it is the worst level of competition that I've ever seen. I saw some of these guys' pictures and I laughed out loud. There's actually a guy whose name that he beat, and it is his name is Dong Kong. It's actually Han Dong Kong, you know, but that's like a fake name that I've used before, Dong Kong.
Oh my gosh.
What? Yeah, dude, look at that guy.
Is that Patty Pimblett? Man. Is that Patty Pimblett there?
Dude, the fake blonde hair, the fraudulent record. The guy's never beaten anybody that actually has a professional win. He beats cans like this. There's a dude that he beat twice that's got titties. Honest to God, titties.
What's his name?
I think it's this Zhang guy. No, it's not Zhang. Zhang's actually in good shape. I think it's Ho. No. Ho looks like a bum as well. He's 2-6. And
terrible picture there. Terrible picture. Terrible quality.
Yeah, that guy's got a head like an Easter Island statue. Who is this guy? The fat guy. Was it Tion? Yeah. Look at Tion. Look at the titties on Tion.
Where's Tion at?
Hong Yan Tion, 2-5. He's beaten this dude twice. Why do you need to beat him twice? I mean, the life's already kicking this guy's ass. Why do you have to put him in the cage with the young Minyang Zhang? So, look, the biggest thing about this fight is that they've both got holes on the ground. They both kind of look for the door when things start not going their way. But in terms of level of competition, it's seriously not even close. This guy Ribeiro is fighting in Russia. He's fighting like experienced guys in Russia. He's fighting on Future, Jungle Fight. good level of competition. You look at these guys that Brady is bringing up here. These are not real fighters. These are not even real fights. And the win over Tacos is like by far the best win that he's ever had over Tuco Tacos, who's a guy who trains over at Kill Cliff FC. You know, I mean, Brendan Allen was in his corner for that fight, but he flew from South Florida to Singapore on short notice to take that fight. And, you know, I mean, the fact that Tacos had a really bad performance, but even in that fight, Tacos is landing big shots on this guy early.
Yeah,
So, you know, but I like Zhang's pressure in that fight. And there's a very high possibility that this guy Zhang could get a lot better. He's still only 25 years old. He's got a ton of experience, but he barrels fought the way better guys. And in terms of skills, you know, I think that they're pretty close. So I took the shot on Barrow's money line, 1 unit plus 124. I'll take the much better level of competition that he's fought at. I'll take that reach advantage, that height advantage, and the submission grappling advantage that he's shown. He can actually submit guys on the ground too. So that's what I'm going with here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a clear dogger pass. I feel like neither of these guys should be favored here. So, yeah, I feel like it should be minus 110. And at that point, you take the plus money. I'll be passing. But Zhang opened up minus 150. Yeah, that's where I'd put it. Minus 115. He's currently minus 127. Ribeiro opened up minus 105, currently plus 107. Yeah, I think it should be a pick 'em. I think somebody's getting slept in the first round. I don't know who, but I did pick Ribeiro with like negative confidence. What I do like is violence, but the bookies like it even more. The under 1.5 rounds. I'm not sure if Terrence McKinney's fighting, but they have it at minus 325 already. And it's like Monday, and it's already minus 325 to the under 1.5 rounds. That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, like I said, these guys' average fight time, if you weight them amongst 43 fights, you know, is 3.85 minutes or something like that. And one of the fights that went 15 minutes actually finished in 3 minutes. So there's like 12 fake minutes there that actually brings the average fight time down to something like 3.5. So when you see something like that, the books are just going to get out of the way. They're going to be like, everybody and their brother is going to want to bet violence on this fight and parlay it. So they got to put it at a price so that they still got a roof over their head on Sunday when this thing inevitably finishes in the first round.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the props. Ribeiro round 1, it's plus 300. That's not terrible.
That's not bad. I'm pretty sure that every fight that Zhang has lost, he's lost in round number 1.
Yeah, because they have Zhang only plus 180 round 1, but Ribeiro plus 300 in round 1. Ribeiro KO 1 plus 600. Ribeiro sub 1 plus 1400. What do you think? You think it's a sub or a knockout?
Dude, I think he could sub him too. I mean, Ribeiro's got really long limbs. He subbed like one of those losses on his record. He subbed that dude with the triangle. So, yeah, we're gonna have to see, man. This is gonna be a really fun fight. I think it's fun matchmaking, and you know they're getting 2 debutantes here squaring off against each other. They're both violent. They both have 100% finish rates, and they both have been finished in all but one of their losses. So, yeah, it's gonna be a really fun fight on a pay-per-view card that'll help them get to that pay-per-view card nice and quickly.
Yeah, if I was a matchmaker, this is the type of matchup I would make. I'd make a stupid matchup like this. 100% finish rates between the two. These guys are going to swing dicks. This is my type of matchup, but like I said, they're all over the violence there. You want to hear something disgusting?
What's that?
Shout out to Aussie UFC Picks on Twitter. He messages me January 18th. And he's like, "Hey Brady, I think you might be interested in this line." And what he shows me is FanDuel makes a mistake. You know how they do their mistake lines, right? They open up random totals. They opened up the over-under at 2.5 in this fight. The under 2.5 at minus 112.
Oh God, yeah. If they were going to honor those bets, man, I mean, like the how easily you could arb out on that is not even funny. I mean, you could just immediately arb out for like a 50% return on investment, maybe even more.
It's crazy, man. He messaged me that at 6 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, he's over in Australia, but he messaged me at 6 o'clock in the morning. I replied at like 2:50. Maybe I slept in that day, so I missed the FanDuel mistake. Dang it! Because imagine holding an under 2.5 ticket in this fight at minus 112. Like even the under 1.5 at minus 112. Yes, Yes. So yeah, shout out to him. I know a couple people got on that mistake line and they're feeling really good about it right now because this is probably the most violent fight on the card, at least on paper.
That's such a great line. I mean, take a picture of that one and just brag about it on Twitter, man, because you got the line of the century right there. That's a beauty.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll keep moving on. Dobson Gore, this fight's off, right? I hope
Yeah,
it's off because I
yeah,
didn't look into
it's
it.
off.
Okay, good. I did not look into that. What
Keep
I
the
did look
stats in
into,
there for the Patreon people,
yeah, I got you. I got you. And I was looking forward to that fight as well, but it is what it is. All right, Weezy, we have a fight that probably shouldn't be sanctioned here. We got Rinya Nakamura going against Carlos Vera. We got Nakamura, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Carlos Vera, 36 years old, 5'6" with a 69.5-inch reach. Nakamura, 8 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 1.5-inch reach disadvantage. Nakamura, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, knocked out Kazama in the first round. Got a couple finishes on road to UFC prior to that, knockout sub win, and then he beats Fernie Garcia by decision his last time out. As far as Carlos Vera, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He fought in the Ultimate Fighter, and he lost a decision to Brad Katona. Yeah, this is a tough matchup for Carlos Vera. Not only is he making his debut here at 36, but I went and watched pretty much every single fight I could of Carlos Vera, and there's a theme in every single one. And that theme is, I mean, he's getting taken down with little to no resistance. I mean, his takedown defense is a serious problem, and he's getting taken down against some of these other guys outside the UFC. Rinya Nakamura is going to have no problem whatsoever taking down Carlos Vera. Rinya Nakamura's wrestling's no joke. This guy's extremely physically strong. He's going to pick Carlos Vera up and slam him. And then, so that was one theme I noticed in Vera fights. His takedown defense is subpar at the very best. And then the other thing I noticed is this guy gives up his back in every single fight. Gave up his back to Brad Katona multiple times, giving up his back in other fights as well. That's not a good look. And then the other thing I noticed was he rolls for a lot of legs and a lot of ankles, and that's just stuff that doesn't really work in the UFC these days. When guys are rolling for an ankle or a leg, they're getting their face pounded in. Remember who was the Nate Mateus Mendoza? Yeah, got his face pounded in. Who was that guy that fought Joe Anderson Brito that got his face pounded in rolling for an
Weston
ankle?
Wilson.
Yeah, Weston Wilson you can't do that in the UFC, especially against a guy in Rinya Nakamura who can punch a hole through the canvas. So, yeah, it's a tough matchup, but hey, he's minus 1,000. What are you going to do? I thought I might get like a sneaky price on Nakamura inside the distance because he didn't finish Fernie Garcia. Maybe some recency bias there. Rinya Nakamura inside the distance last time I checked was like minus 700, which when have we ever seen an inside the distance prop of minus 700? Never. The fight doesn't go as minus 1,000. I think it's came down a little bit, but yeah, I am not getting a good price on a finish prop for Rinya. So yeah, probably going to be passing on this one, but yeah, Rinya should win this fight. I think it's sub as well. Vera's been sub twice. He gives up his back. He puts himself into terrible spots. He's taking this fight on short notice. Rinya's a minus 1,000 favorite for a reason here. And I really wanted to see his matchup versus Brady Heastan. It was supposed to be Brady Heastan versus Rinya Nakamura. How fun was that fight going to be? But in steps Carlos Vera getting an opportunity here, and we'll see how it works out for him. But Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, like when I taped Carlos Vera, I'm like, because I was like, I was asking the same question when they got him on to fight last time, and it's like, why, man? The guy's a 36-year-old bantamweight, with good wins in Fury, but nothing that'll blow your doors off, and then he loses to Katona in the tough house, and now you're signing him to fight a fight, and then that fight didn't happen, and then they actually cut him. They signed him. He didn't fight. They cut him. And then now they re-sign him again to fight Rinya Nakamura. Like this guy hasn't proved enough in 2 fights to get a little bit better of a step up than a 36-year-old debutant in Carlos Vera. And I mean, like, Vera's not half bad. He's got to take Taekwondo striking base. He's kind of tricky on the feet. He throws a lot of kicks. He can maintain distance with his oblique kicks and leg kicks. He's got some unorthodox spinning techniques. He's got decent hands. On the ground, he's a guy who trains at 50-50 martial arts over there with Ryan Hall. So, those guys are tricky grapplers. They love those 50-50 positions and to roll for leg locks and go for things like that. So he could be a little bit tricky to deal with on the ground. He's got 14 professional fights. He also had like a 13-fight amateur career before that, where he was like 9-4 or something like that. So the guy's been around, solid grappling, okay striking, solid conditioning. He's a good fighter, but like this is just a brutal matchup for him. I mean, where is he better than Nakamura? Like Nakamura swings hammers on the feet, and I could see if Nakamura goes in there against a hitter and trusts his hands too much, I could absolutely see Nakamura getting flatlined. But Carlos Vera is flatlining nobody. And while Carlos Vera is a tricky grappler, the wrestling advantage, the scrambling advantage, the submission grappling advantage, I mean, it's all Nakamura. So, yeah, minus 1,000, minus 1,350, I think, on DraftKings. What are we supposed to do here, Brady? What are we doing with that? Minus 1,350. Are we parlaying that with something?
No, I told you. I told you what I was doing earlier. Did I not? Did you not get the message?
Was that 10 units to win 1, or are you going 5 units to win 0.5?
Just 1 unit to win 0.10.
Hey, yeah, and then that's your only bet on the card, and then you're going to say, I finally got off the schneid after losing last week, and I'm on a winning streak now. Dude, you love it. That shows professionalism. It shows somebody that knows how to trick the statistics. These are veteran moves, Brady. But yeah, dude, this is. I think Carlos Vera is going to run into a dick saw. And I don't know how else. I mean, I think maybe a Hail Mary heel hook is his path to victory.
Exactly. How pissed do you think people would be if I posted on Twitter 1 unit Rinya Nakamura minus 1,000?
I think I'm just gonna bet it to be a prick and be like, hope I win, more than 1/10 of 1 unit. That and just be like, hey man, my straight picks percentage starting to creep up, you guys.
Dude, imagine laying
Nakamura.
Imagine laying 10 units to win only a unit. I wonder if anybody's going to do that this week.
Yeah, terrible and idea. You'd probably be yawning throughout that fight, saying this isn't enough excitement that I could possibly lose 10 units on this fight, because there's probably going to be no points where you're like, oh no, Vera's got him in trouble. I just don't see that happening, man.
Yeah. Nakamura, like you said, 1,350 on DraftKings Sportsbook. When I first saw the fight was announced, I was like, I think this is probably going to be the widest line in UFC history. It's not going to be the case, but it is going to, looks like it's going to close pretty wide here. So 1,350 already on DraftKings Sportsbook. The fight doesn't go, interestingly enough. Weezy opened up minus 1,400 on Bet Online. Money came in on the fight goes at that point, and the fight doesn't go, is now at minus 700. I hope the money keeps coming in on non-violence. Maybe I'll get somewhat of a playable line on these Nakamura props. Nakamura KO minus 165, Nakamura submission plus 250. I'll see what the other books come out with, but yeah, it should be Nakamura and Nakamura. I'm thinking by sub, but it could also be TKO if this guy does roll for a leg. This guy can get his face pounded in as well. So look at this. We got Ryan saying 100 units to win 10 units.
Yeah,
the whole bankroll.
Yeah, the whole bankroll, man. You just got to hope for the no banana peel moments there. But yeah, do you know what? Minus 1,400, I'm betting fight goes. Yeah, I mean, Carlos Vera has been a decision 6 times. Nakamura has been a decision twice. It's not like these guys both have 100% finish rates and both are fragile as glass. That is not a my team. This is not in the minus 1,400. He couldn't even finish Fernie Garcia. Hyder Emil just beat 7 shades of shit out of Fernie Garcia and finished him in 6 minutes. So let's just pump the brakes on minus 1,400. Fight doesn't go. That's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid. Even though I really do think he finishes him pretty easily. That's stupid. Round 1 minus 150. That's stupid as well. Yeah, and I do expect these props to get to hit on the non-violent side, because that is pretty dumb. But we'll move on to the next fight. Another fight that is shaded heavily towards violence. We got Marcos Rogério de Lima going against Justin Tafa. We got de Lima, 38 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Tafa, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. Tafa, 8 years younger. Tafa with a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. De Lima is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Ben Rothwell. A decision loss to Blagoy Ivanov. Submission win against Andrei Arlovsky. A decision win against Waldo Cortez Acosta. And then a decision or knockout loss against Derek Lewis. As far as Justin Tafa, He had a decision loss to Jared Vanderaa. That caught me off guard, losing to Jared Vanderaa. A knockout win against Terry Hunsucker, a Parker Porter knockout win, a no contest against Austin Lane with the eye poke, and then knocked out Austin Lane. Just looking through these last several fights of Tafa, like, this is terrible. Like, this is terrible level of competition. I don't know, Weezy. I mean, this is a heavyweight fight. Obviously, either guy can knock either guy out. Both guys have a ton of power. Lima, for what it's worth, 31 fights in his career, only been knocked out twice. Justin Tafa, 11 fights in his career, was knocked out by Yorgan De Castro, which is not the best look. But yeah, either guy can get a knockout here. It's the heavyweight division. Both these guys hit light truck. The reason why I'm leaning the Lima side is because I just think he has more ways to win. Not only do I think he's probably the more durable guy, but I think he has the grappling advantage here. Justin Tafa's grappling has not been tested in the UFC, really hasn't been tested outside the UFC as well. And I have a strong suspicion that Justin Tafa is probably not that great off his back. De Lima is a black belt, believe it or not. He has been subbed a million times, but he also has a good amount of submission wins himself. I feel like De Lima can potentially get takedowns here like he did against Waldo Cortez Acosta, like he did against Arlovsky, like he did against I think Maurice Green as well. And I feel like if De Lima does get on top here, he can potentially get a TKO or a sub. But yeah, somebody's getting served here. I don't know who, but I'd lean De Lima just because I think he has more ways to win. The under is completely juiced, a little bit less than the Zhang fight we talked about, Zhang Ribeiro, but it is juiced nonetheless. And I kind of agree with it. I think somebody's getting stopped here early. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this heavyweight fight?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of love for Marcos Rogério de Lima online this week, and I mean, I totally get it. This seems like a smash de Lima spot at the number, in my opinion, because we still don't know shit about Justin Tafa. The wins, who cares? You could put who cares next to every single win at the UFC level for Justin Tafa. You beat Austin Lane, who fucking cares? You beat Parker Porter, who fucking cares? You beat Harry Hunsucker, who fucking cares? I mean, you lose to Jared Vanderaa. Did he beat the Astro? Did he beat him?
Did he beat who?
Yorgan De Astro, or no, De Astro actually knocked him out, right?
He knocked him out.
Yeah, I mean, who are the other wins? Is there one other win?
Oh, Juan Adams. Juan Adams.
Oh, who fucking cares, right? Okay, so it's who cares next to all the Tafa's wins. Justin Tafa's only faced 2 takedown attempts in 8 UFC fights. So do we know what this guy's wrestling looks like? No. Do we know that De Lima, a guy who's going out there and winning 44% control time positions against his opponents? This guy's got 96 minutes of cage time, and he's winning 44% control time. So De Lima does have more ways to win because both of these guys have got sick power on the feet. Both of these guys have got nasty distance striking knockdown percentage numbers. 2.37% for Tafa, 2.63% for De Lima. De Lima's leg kicks are nasty. De Lima can get takedowns and top control. So while Tafa is kind of limited to that first round knockout, because I don't even think we've ever seen Justin Tafa win a fight that went out of the first round. Have we?
No, he lost to Carlos Felipe. That went 15 minutes. He lost to Vanderaa and went 15 minutes there as well.
There you go. So I feel like you could put a max bet on De Lima and hedge with a first round Tafa KO and come out with a nice return on investment of that bet. Because if it gets out of the first round, we don't know shit about Tafa's cardio. And we know that De Lima can get takedowns in the second and third round because we've seen him do that over and over and over again against guys who can't grapple. Can Justin Tafa grapple? Well, I have no idea. He's only faced 2 takedown attempts, and he's faced bums. These guys are not good grapplers, Vanderaa doesn't. I mean, Vanderaa probably could have out-grappled him, but he probably didn't shoot any takedowns because he's an idiot. So yeah, man, this is I like this spot a lot for De Lima, and I feel like you can hedge with Tafa by first round knockout and have a pretty good return on investment on that pairing of bets.
Yeah, De Lima is opened up -190, currently -140. Tafa opened up plus 165, currently plus 120. The over under stood at 1.5. The under was minus 225. It's now minus 200. The fight doesn't go as minus 500. I don't really see myself touching much in this fight. Maybe looking at some props here or there. I was like my hot take of the week is like the Lima by submission, but they're just trash odds. Like the Lima by submission is only plus 400. That's trash.
He's attempted some submissions, 0.62 per 15 minutes. So we've actually seen him try to get some submissions, and we just don't know anything about Tafa's ground game. So, yeah, man, it's an interesting fight. It's a very interesting fight. I like Lima here. I'm going to pick him to win, but we know what Tafa's win condition is here. First round KO for this guy is always live. It's always on the table. He's got next level power.
Yep, Tafa KO 1 is plus 300.
And his money line is... Yeah, that's actually not bad for the guy's win condition.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Not bad. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, we have some really violent fights on this card. We got the Nakamura fight, the Lima fight, the Zhang fight, some very violent fights.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, man. This is really good matchmaking with Tafa de Lima. I think we're going to find out a lot about Justin here, and it promises to end very quickly.
Yes, sir. All right, Weezy. Next, we have the fight that I think I'm struggling with the most on the card. We got Amanda Lemos going against Mackenzie Dern. We got Lemos, 36 years old, 5'4", and 65-inch reach. Mackenzie Dern, 30 years old, 5'4", a 63-inch reach. We got Dern 6 years younger, same height, and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Lemos is 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Decision win against Angela Hill. Submission loss to Jessica Andrade. Submission win against Michelle Watterson. Knockout win against Marina Rodriguez, and then a decision loss to Zhang Weili. As far as Mackenzie Dern, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss to Marina Rodriguez. Decision win against Tisha Torres. Decision loss against Yan Xiaonan. Decision win against Angela Hill. And then a knockout win or knockout loss against Jessica Andrade. So, yeah, we'll start with Mackenzie Dern here. So Mackenzie Dern is a fighter who I really thought she was starting to turn a corner. You know, she's 30 years old. She's been working on her wrestling, her striking, and it started to look, a lot better. That Angela Hill fight. I know it's Angela Hill, but Angela Hill's kind of fought the who's who. She's been in the UFC forever. The way Mackenzie Dern went out there and just handled Angela Hill in that fight. I mean, I was looking at the scorecards, 49-43, 49-44 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. Like, she just beat the brakes off of Angela Hill. Her wrestling looked better than ever. Her striking looked better than ever. She dropped Angela Hill, hurt Angela Hill multiple times, beat the crap out of her across 25 minutes. It was the most impressive performance I've ever seen out of Mackenzie Dern, right? And then she fights, Jessica Andrade, and she was a big favorite in that Andrade fight. She was anywhere from minus 200 to minus 220. And she went out there and looked terrible. Like, it was her worst performance. And it was against Andrade, who a lot of people, including me, thought Andrade might be done. She might be on her way out. Andrade was on a 3-fight skid, all finished losses. And she went out there against Andrade and just looked terrible. The striking looked terrible. The striking defense looked terrible. And she was dropped 4 times in that fight. It just all looked terrible. Just terrible. So you got that. On the Lemos side, I kind of question, like, where is Lemos at this point of her career? She's 36, almost 37 at strawweight. She just came off of a title fight loss. Like, what's her motivation after going out there and, quite frankly, putting up one of the most embarrassing title performances I've ever seen in my life? I mean, Zhang Weili beat the living crap out of her for 25 minutes. We got a striker versus grappler matchup here. On the feet, Lemos is going to be the better striker. Dern is obviously going to be the better grappler. It's a fight, like, this is borderline like 1-800-GAMBLER for me, because I just don't trust either fighter. I don't trust the ground game of Lemos. I don't trust the cardio of Lemos, but I don't trust the chin of Dern. I don't trust the striking defense of Dern. I don't trust the wrestling of Dern. I don't trust either of these fighters, Weezy. I have a feeling this is going to be a very highly debated fight this week on MMA Twitter. I feel like a lot of people are going to have action on this one, but I will have 0 action on this fight. One thing I do want to bring up before you get into your thoughts on this, Weezy, this line, this line movement's crazy. Lemos opened up minus 270, and it's been nothing but Dern love. Lemos went from minus 270 to minus 130. Dern opened up plus 230. She's currently plus 112. So this has significant line movement. Weezy, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this fight.
Yeah, I mean, both of these ladies are coming off a bad loss. but one of these ladies is 36, and the other one's 30. So, a bad loss, coming off a bad loss for a 36-year-old is a whole lot different than for a 30-year-old. I want to see how Lemos deals with the pressure of Mackenzie Dern here, because when Mackenzie's at her best is when she's pressuring. She has to pressure, move forward, get the opponent on the back foot, get them backed up to the fence. Don't let them plant and land big against you. Get into that clinch, pull guard, go for a trip, sweep, or a reap. Try to get a takedown of your own. Just grapple, and you force the grappling by pressuring, by not letting your opponent, get their feet planted and sit down on their punches, because you don't want Amanda Lemos doing that. One of the reasons we saw Lemos lose to Andrade was just the pressure. I mean, Andrade just got right into that clinch and locked up that arm triangle standing up, because she wasn't giving Amanda room to work. And, there's a lot of fighters that don't do well when they're getting pressured. And Lemos is one of them. And Dern, on the other hand, does her best work when she is the pressure fighter. So I think that's what this comes down to, frankly. But Mackenzie's younger. Obviously, she's the better grappler here, and she's not really outsized. But we do know how powerful Lemos is on the feet, but it's very encouraging if you're on that Mackenzie Dern side to see, while Mackenzie spends about 56% of her UFC cage time at distance striking range, Amanda Lemos only spends about 52% there. And Lemos is not a woman who's attempting a lot of takedowns or having a lot of takedowns attempted against her. But yet her fights do find their way into these control time positions. I don't want her in those control time positions if I'm betting on Amanda Lemos. And I want Mackenzie forcing those control time positions. I want her forcing the pressure on the feet. I want her getting Amanda on her back foot. I want her clinching up. I want her trying to get takedowns or pull guard. I'm just as happy if I'm betting on Mackenzie Dern if she gets a takedown or if she pulls guard. I could care less. She's that good on the ground. She's going to be better than her opponent on the ground. The fight just needs to get there. Pride doesn't matter. She can pull guard, roll for a leg lock, and get on top immediately. It'd be even easier for her to do that than it would for her to wrestle, because she's still only getting her takedowns at a 14% clip, Brady. So she should be pulling guard more. She should be clinching up more. She should be trying to find creative ways to get fights into the grappling range where she does her best work and where she's most dangerous. So I'm leaning Dern here. I think this is a great opportunity of recency bias, giving us a little bit of value in a line here. Can Lemos catch Dern? Absolutely. I mean, we just saw Andrade do it. So, but I think that, when you look at the MMA math, Dern's performance against Jessica Andrade was just as good as Lemos's performance against Andrade. But when you line up the Hill fights, they weren't even close. So I think that Dern will be able to do better work as this fight goes on. And I think defending against the grappling of Mackenzie Dern is just exhausting to do. And I don't see Amanda, outside of an early knockout in rounds 1 or 2, being able to do that late in the fight. So I like Dern to get the job done here. I think she can win minutes on her way to a decision, or I think she can find a submission.
Yeah, I didn't want to make a pick on this fight, but I actually picked Dern as well. But I just have no confidence in it. If the Dern that shows up, and if the Dern that fought Angela Hill shows up, I think she smokes Lemos. Like Lemos, I think the grappling, cardio, and takedown defense is all a liability. The age, she's 30, almost 37 at strawweight. That can't be ignored. But yeah, I don't know. Dern's a fighter I typically struggle with in terms of getting her fights right or wrong. Typically wrong more often than not in her fights. But I picked Dern for what it's worth. I don't think I'm betting this, especially after missing the line movement by like 120 points. Like that's a drastic line move.
Yeah, definitely. There's no I mean, it's hard to bet, at plus 110 when you saw it was available at plus 230. It's kind of hard to swallow your pride and do that. So yeah, I'm not running to the window on this one either.
Yeah. Yeah. Dern, Lemos is a great takedown defense. Yeah. Nobody's really tested her takedown defense though, outside of Zhang Weili, which is a good point, but nobody's really tested it. Like, Angela Hill wasn't trying to take her down. Suzuki Inoue is not trying to take her down. She fought Leslie Smith, Miranda Granger, Livion Souza. In theory, probably should have tried to take her down, didn't attempt a takedown. So, yeah, nobody's really tried to take her down outside of Zhang Weili. So we don't know if it's good or bad, right?
Yeah, we'll find out, man, because Dern's not exactly a high percentage takedown artist, but like I said, she doesn't need to take you down. She can pull guard and be just as dangerous.
Yeah. You're 120% right there.
Yeah,
Dern's wrestling is not great. If Dern had a good wrestling, she'd be an absolute freaking problem in the division. So we'll see. I don't see myself touching this fight unless a crazy prop sticks out late in the week. But judging by these odds on BetOnline, nothing sticking out. Dern by submission is plus 275. Like, that's actually not terrible. Plus 275 for Dern submission. Lemos KO only plus 160. That opened up plus 290. Somebody smacked that one. So, yeah, we'll see. All right, Weezy, we'll move on to the main card opener. And what a main card opener it is. We got Anthony Fluffy Hernandez going against Roman Kopylov. We got Fluffy Hernandez, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Kopylov, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Hernandez, 2 years younger, same height and same reach. Hernandez is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss to Kevin Holland. Submission win against Rodolfo Vieira. Decision win against Josh Fremd, submission win against Marc-Andre Barrio, and then a knockout win against Edmund Shabazian. As far as Roman Kopylov, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to Albert Duraev, knockout win against Alessio Di Chirico, knockout win against Soriano, Ribeiro, and Josh Fremd. I'm really looking forward to this fight here, Weezy. I know you are as well. I'm a big fan of both these guys. Roman Kopylov is a guy that people used to think was just a complete bum, right? He got submitted by Carl Roberson. That's inexcusable. Got 10-8'd by Albert Duraev. That's inexcusable. But, since those 2 fights, this guy has turned a corner. He's looking better than ever. Had a career best performance against Alessio Di Chirico. Beat the brakes off of him. Finished him in the 3rd. Beat the brakes off of Punahele Soriano, which Soriano is an extremely tough guy, as is Di Chirico. Knocking them both out was extremely impressive. Beat Soriano up, broke him, hurt him multiple times, and got him out of there in the 2nd. And then lands a nasty head kick, one of the nastiest head kicks of 2023, and just destroys Ribeiro in the 2nd round. And then goes out there and beats the brakes off of Josh Fremd, breaks him down, kind of like a Soriano fight, breaks him down and finishes him in the 2nd. I think Roman Kopylov, his striking's incredible. He's only getting better, and his takedown defense has looked really good at 92% thus far in the UFC. But he's taken on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, which I think is a very tough matchup for him. What I found interesting with Hernandez is this is a guy who's landing 6.79 takedowns per 15 minutes, which I was looking at Merab's, takedown numbers, and he's actually landing more takedowns than Merab. I think Merab's like 6.5, something like that. Hernandez 6.79, almost landing 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. Like, that's ridiculous. This guy got 14 takedowns. 22 takedowns in his last 3 fights. 22 takedowns. So, yeah, Kopylov, although he does have 92% takedown defense, look at who he's fighting. Josh Fremd. Josh Fremd went 0-for-5 on takedowns. Claudio Ribeiro, I don't even think attempted one. Punahele Soriano attempted 3. Alessio Di Chirico, I don't think attempted one. And then Albert Duraev did attempt 9, only got 1 there. So, yeah, his takedown defense has looked great, but I have a feeling Fluffy Hernandez is going to get him down. And although I think Kopylov does have great takedown defense, I think the ground game is a massive, massive, massive liability, because anytime we have seen Kopylov off his back on the ground, it has looked atrocious. Getting submitted by Carl Roberson is a massive red flag. I don't care how long ago it was. It's a massive red flag. But what's an even bigger red flag was his fight against Albert Duraev, who I think is a fraud. I'm not sure your thoughts on him. But Albert Duraev got on top of Kopylov in the 2nd round, 10-8'd him, almost like a 10-7. Like, the fight should have been stopped on multiple occasions. Duraev just beat the crap out of him, almost subbed him a couple times. The fight should have been stopped. He just looked awful off his back. And now he's coming in here on short notice. You don't take a short notice fight against Anthony Hernandez. You just don't. And I already worry about the cardio of Kopylov. He was dead tired in the Duraev fight. In that 3rd round, he had nothing left. But luckily for him, so was Albert Duraev. That's not Fluffy Hernandez. Fluffy Hernandez, full camp here. I do want to see who Fluffy was supposed to. Oh, he's supposed to fight Ikram Alaskarov. Alaskarov pulled out in steps Roman Kopylov. I think the path here for Kopylov's landing a shot to the body. We've seen Hernandez finish to the body a couple times. Kevin Holland finished him to the body, and then he got club and sud by Marcus Perez. Got hurt to the body there, sub shortly after. And Roman Kopylov, for what it's worth, does attack the body very well and also has a very good head kick. So I think Fluffy's going to have to wrestle very early and often, and I think he has success. I think he's going to attempt like 10 submissions. He's going to try the Anaconda 10 times. It probably doesn't work on like the first 7, but on the 8th time, I think it works. I think Anthony Hernandez gets an Anaconda choke in the second round after breaking poor Roman Kopylov. I hate this fight, but I love it. I hate it because I like both these guys, but I love it because how could you not? This fight's phenomenal. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, these are the kind of fights we see when the UFC tries. This is the UFC trying. This is the UFC saying, well, we got to sell some tickets, so let's make the fans give a shit here. And if I'm a matchmaker and I want the fans giving a shit, I'm calling up Anthony Hernandez, and I'm finding a good opponent for him. And there are several of them, and one of them is Roman Kopylov. And what makes this fight so intriguing, Brady, is both of these guys do what the other one is weak against, right?
Yeah.
With Kopylov, you got really good takedown defense, which is great, right? But once his back hits the mat, he looks white belt level. And like we said, Duraev absolutely mauling you on the ground is a bad look. But the fact that Duraev could barely even stand in the 3rd round, Kopylov gets finished there. I mean, actually, Duraev, when he was trying to finish that fight in the 2nd round, he got tired.
Yes.
Anthony Hernandez never gets tired. He never, ever. I don't even know if that dude sleeps. He's like Biz Marquee, man. The dude never, ever sleeps, and he probably never gets tired because he doesn't need to sleep. He's not an actual human being. And people make the mistake of talking about where Anthony Hernandez is weak technically. And there's a few different spots, but the problem is that the guy doesn't get tired. You can hit him in the head with a shovel, and it's not going to stop him. He's got a ridiculous chin. He's got a brick for a head. Nobody's knocking this dude out to the head. But to the body, we've seen him finish twice, haven't we, Brady? Marcus Perez hurts him to the body, takes him to the ground, subs him with an anaconda choke. Then we see Kevin Holland hurt him to the body and finish him. Roman Kopylov hurts people to the body. So while we've seen Kopylov get broken by better grapplers, especially when they get his back to the mat, Anthony Hernandez is absolutely capable of breaking anybody on the mat. He broke Rodolfo Vieira on the mat, ladies and gentlemen. If you can do that to him, you can break Roman Kopylov, okay? But Kopylov can break his ribs, can break Hernandez's ribs. And that seems to be the only place that you can hurt this man is in his unusually large lungs that allow him to be able to fight at an ungodly pace for an almost impossible length of time. So I think that this is a brutal matchup, though, for Roman Kopylov, because 92% takedown defense is fantastic when your opponent is going to try 3 or 4 takedowns. Hernandez is going to try about 17 of them. And it's just the pace, you guys. If you don't break him, he keeps coming, right? And if he has any success in the 1st round, that makes the 2nd round even tougher to find success against him. And then once he has success in the 2nd round, that's when you start looking for the door, because you realize there's just 8 or 9 more minutes of this, and it's going to be hell because this guy never gets tired. So as much as I like Kopylov's striking, 9.79 distance strike attempts per minute is indicative of somebody that might get tired. You know what I'm saying? And we've seen Kopylov absolutely get exhausted whenever he's been required to grapple. And that's something that we don't see Hernandez do. There's a massive conditioning advantage here for Hernandez. There's a massive durability advantage here for Hernandez. There's a massive wrestling advantage here for Hernandez. There's a massive submission grappling advantage here for Hernandez. If you don't get this guy hurt early, he is an absolute nightmare to deal with in the second half of fights. And I see Hernandez getting a 2nd or a 3rd round finish with top control, ground and pound, and a potential submission.
Yep, seeing it the exact same way. Hernandez opened up minus 225, went to minus 150. I don't know if this is true, but it apparently went to plus 100, it says. But he's currently at minus 200. Roman Kopylov is currently at plus 170. The over-under set at 1.5. The over 1.5 is getting smashed. Last I checked, it was like minus 165, which I do think this fight goes over, but over like ever so slightly. I see like a late second round finish here. What's interesting about Kopylov fights, Kopylov has had 12 fights that finished. Only one of those finished in the first round, believe it or not. And I think it was a knockout win from him. So when he's finishing fights, Kopylov, it is in the second or third. When he's getting finished, it's in the second or third. And I think that's the case here. I think Kopylov does get finished in the second or third, but I think that's how a lot of people are seeing the fight as well. If you like Hernandez, and if you're seeing Kopylov, you're probably looking at a body shot knockout. I think that's what people are seeing on that side as well. Any thoughts on the money line? It kind of got smoked like the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I did. I would not bet on Hernandez right now because I think that there's a lot of good cases to make for why Roman Kopylov wins this fight. You know, he is strong where Hernandez is weaker. So I really do think that Kopylov's kind of live here, and I think that the price will probably get better on Hernandez as the week goes on. So, but it did move. It was sitting around minus 170, and then all of a sudden it was minus 200. So I think we could get some buyback here on the Kopylov side. He's a phenomenal striker, and both of these guys are on 4-fight winning streaks. They're both white hot right now, so there's good cases to be made for both fighters here.
You'll never guess where they opened up the fight. Doesn't go to decision.
Minus 325.
Minus 325.
Yeah, man. This is, I can, for some reason, I got a knack for calling the type of fights that Bet Online will open at minus 325. And this is definitely one of them. These striker versus grappler matches, where both guys are good fighters or both guys are good finishers. That's where they tend to open these. And this is a perfect example of that.
Yep, for sure. Cannot wait for that fight. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We got Merab Dvalishvili going against Henry Cejudo. We got Merab, 33 years old, 5'6" with a 68-inch reach. Cejudo, 36 years old, 5'4" with a 64-inch reach. Merab is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against John Dotson. Cody Stamann knocked out Marlon Moraes and then beat Jose Aldo and Piotr Jan by decision. As far as Henry Cejudo, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He beat Demetrius Johnson, knocked out TJ Dillashaw, Marlon Moraes, and Dominic Cruz. Took a massive 3-year layoff, comes back, lost to Aljamain Sterling. Close split decision, could have really went either way, but didn't really look like the same Henry Cejudo. And now he is almost 37 years old. I think he's turning 37 like in the next couple days, right? Or next week or so.
Yeah, it's February 9th, so it actually already happened.
Oh, happy birthday, Henry Cejudo, 37 years old. There you go. Yeah, this is a fight where after watching Merab's last fight, I mean, I'm not sure if I'd really pick anybody against Merab. What he did against Piotr Jan was just something like in a video game. He went out there and he attempted 49 takedowns in a 25-minute fight. And I was saying on my prediction video, like you can take like 95% or even more of the fighters on the UFC roster. They'll never shoot 49 takedowns in their entire career. This guy did it in one night. It was crazy. Not only did he attempt 49 takedowns, which is just unheard of, he didn't even get tired. He could have went probably another 25 minutes. He attempted over 400 strikes as well. This guy, I mean, the nickname, The Machine, it is more than deserved. Like, how do you go out there and do that without getting tired? Henry Cejudo has great takedown defense. Henry Cejudo probably stuffs a lot of takedowns, but, Merab Dvalishvili is one of these guys where his offense is just going out there, wrestling you. So if you're Henry Cejudo, you're going to be worried about the takedowns, right? And it kind of like the Jan fight, Jan was not able to get anything off because the entire time he was worrying about having to stuff the takedowns. He was worried about the shots coming back at him. Piotr Jan was not able to get anything going whatsoever because Merab didn't let him. And that's kind of what worries me here about Cejudo. I don't know if he's going to get off much offense because Merab's probably not going to let him. Merab's going to attempt takedowns. Merab's going to push him against the cage. Merab's going to try to land strikes, and he's going to just be relentless for the full 15 minutes. I don't like the fact that Cejudo's now 37 years old. I didn't like the fact that he took a massive 3-year layoff. So, yeah, I like Merab here, but it's not an easy matchup. But I also didn't think Piotr Jan was an easy matchup. I didn't think Jose Aldo was an easy matchup. But he went out there and he won both those fights pretty handedly. So I'll take Merab here. Don't know if I'll bet it, though, but Merab's the pick for me. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
Fascinating fight. I mean, you're taking a guy who's got the most difficult to deal with wrestling pace in the entire UFC, attempting 18.06 takedowns per 15 minutes, getting 6.55 of them, winning 88% of the control time positions, and you're throwing him out there against one of the best wrestlers to ever set foot in the cage in terms of, accolades in the freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling communities. And that's Henry Cejudo, coming from one of the great wrestling families to ever grace the lands of the United States of America here. And the funny thing is that when you look at the grappling efficiency ratings, it's Cejudo. Cejudo has the better efficiency ratings because of the sheer volume that Dvalishvili pulls out, attempting 204 takedowns to his opponent's 19. See, if we add those numbers together, you get 223. So 204 divided by 223 is he's attempting 91.5% of the takedowns in his fights, but he's getting 88% of the control time positions. So he's getting outperformed by his opponents in terms of the percentage of control time that they're getting in relation to the amount of takedown attempts in their fights. Henry Cejudo only attempts 70% of the takedowns in his fights, but he gets 86% of the control time positions. Guy's a gold medalist. He can absolutely wrestle with Merab Dvalishvili. Henry Cejudo is the better wrestler, and that's not like a controversial comment at all. Dvalishvili's pace is what makes him a phenomenal wrestler at the UFC level in a cage. It's because he can take you to the deep end and make you drown before he does. But this is only a 3-round fight, Brady. Henry Cejudo's the better wrestler. Henry Cejudo is without question the better striker, and his wins are better, and he's faced the better brand of competition overall. So is Merab going to get takedowns? Is he going to hold Henry up against the fence? Because what we see, from early in Merab's career, is when he faces good wrestlers like Ricky Simon and Sainz, for instance, he can give up takedowns too. He can get reversed. If you shoot on him, he can get his ass put to the mat. It's just how long are you going to be able to hold him there? I mean, Merab never stops moving, never stops scrambling, never stops working. But Henry Cejudo has won wrestling battles with guys like Demetrius Johnson. He's been out there with the best, TJ Dillashaw even. These are guys who have better wrestling pedigrees than Merab Dvalishvili does. So this comes down to pace. This comes down to how Henry is he able to keep this fight at distance striking range like he usually does 73% of the time? Or do we wind up in a grappling match here? And if we do wind up in this grappling match, which we most likely do, who wins? I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that either one of these guys wins, because we need to determine how Cejudo deals with the pace and the conditioning of Dvalishvili, and we need to determine how Dvalishvili deals with the technical proficiency of the gold medal wrestling of Henry Cejudo. This is a fascinating fight. I think there's a little bit of value on the money line here for Cejudo, but 37-year-old facing a guy like Merab, it's such a tough ask coming off that phenomenal performance against Peter Yan. But stylistically, I think I would have to bet Cejudo here at plus 170, because I think he has more ways to win the fight.
Yeah. But at the same time, I said that with Yan and Aldo as well. But I mean, if Cejudo wasn't 37, maybe it's just, I don't know. It's getting up there for him. He's fought, like, Cejudo's fought once in the last, 5 years? 4 years?
Yeah, and it was 5 rounds with the champion, and he might have won it.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm touching this one. We have Merab Dvalishvili opened up minus 160, currently minus 183. And we got Henry Cejudo opened up plus 140, currently plus 158. I'll take Merab by decision, but I'm assuming you might have to lay juice. Yeah, you have to lay juice on Merab by decision. Merab money lines minus 183, Merab by decisions minus 125. Cejudo by decisions plus 300. So if you like Cejudo, you got to probably love that, because I don't think anybody's finishing Merab. outside of that weird little submission with Simone at the end of that fight.
Yeah,
But Rob's
that
next
was
level.
trash. That was not
Yeah.
a finish, you know.
I know.
But the point was there is that Simone did reverse a takedown attempt. He did get on top there, and when he did get on top of him, he worked to a dominant position and got it to a choke that probably would have finished most mortals. Now, Merab Dvalishvili, no. I mean, like, he could be the first guy. Like, they could sentence him to death. They could hang him from a rope, and he'd probably still be there 3 weeks later being like, hey, I'm hungry. You know, I mean, so I don't know how you kill that dude. I mean, like, the guy doesn't even seem to need to be able to breathe in order to live, but he's got to out wrestle Henry Cejudo here, and that is a huge ask for any human being at 135 pounds.
Yeah, I don't think he does. Like, he didn't take down Jose Aldo once. He was 0 for 16 on takedowns.
Yeah, and Aldo is known
Aldo
for that
has
awesome.
the best takedown defense in the division.
Yeah, yeah. This is a fast. I mean, Kopylov, Hernandez, and then this one, 2 fascinating fights, and then we can maybe hope that somebody beats the brakes off of this big mouth prick Ian Garry.
And then Robert Whittaker is going to be fighting. We don't know yet, but he's going to be fighting.
Yeah,
somebody.
we'll find that out eventually.
All right, we'll keep moving on to the next fight. We have Geoff Neal going against Ian Garry. We got Ian Garry is 26 years old, 6'3" with a 74-inch reach. Geoff Neal, 33 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. Garry is 7 years younger, 4-inch height advantage, 1-inch reach disadvantage. Geoff Neal is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Stephen Thompson, decision loss against Neil Magny, decision win against Santiago Ponzinibbio, knockout win against Vicente Luque, and then a submission loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov. As far as Ian Garry, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Darian Weeks. Decision win against Gabe Green. Knockout win against Song Kanan. Knockout win against Daniel Rodriguez. And then a decision win against Neil Magny his last time out. So Ian Garry is hopefully going to fight this week. I forget who he was supposed to fight last time out, but he pulled out on fight week. And as long as everything goes good, hopefully we see this fight, because I think this fight was booked a while ago as well. So these two were supposed to fight each other in the past. But yeah, Ian Garry, I think this guy's the full package, really. I think he's a great fighter, great striker, great takedown defense, underrated grappling that we haven't seen yet inside the UFC. Yeah, just really good. Only 26 years old, training at a great gym in Killcliff FC, only going to be making improvements and doing a lot of work around a lot of other gyms as well. Ian Garry's, I think, the real deal. The only problem with Ian Garry, the only thing that I haven't really liked seeing was, the striking defense. I think the striking defense of Ian Garry is certainly a concern. There was a fight with his debut. Jordan Williams, I had a big bet on Ian Garry, and Jordan Williams was like winning the first round. I couldn't believe what I was watching because I had such a big bet on Ian Garry. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? He was getting pieced up. His face was all busted up by Jordan Williams, losing the first round, on his way to losing that first round, and then was able to land a big shot and flatline Jordan Williams. And then I was live in attendance at the Song Kanan fight. Ian Garry is minus 750, and this guy gets dropped by Song Kanan, almost gets knocked out by Song Kanan. It was very close. And I'm like, dude, how do you get dropped by Song Kanan? Like, that's inexcusable. So, yeah, the striking defense is a concern. He has that tall man's defense, hands down, chin up in the air. And it's kind of gave him some problems in the past, and it could potentially give him problems here against Geoff Neal, who the nickname Hands of Steel, and that's a nickname for a reason. You don't see anybody knocking out Vicente Luque. This guy not only knocked out Vicente Luque, but caused Vicente Luque like just serious health issues to the point where, Luque thought he wasn't even going to ever fight again. Like, he brutally knocked out one of the toughest guys ever in Vicente Luque in that third round, just a total beatdown. And Geoff Neal's career is kind of weird. He showed up in the UFC, went, I think, on like a 6-fight winning streak, right? And then he just looks terrible against Stephen Thompson in that 25-minute fight. Looks awful against Neil Magny, and even beats Santiago Ponzinibbio, but just looks awful. But, in that stretch, apparently Neal was like dealing with some serious health issues. He was dealing with a lot of stuff outside the cage, dealing with like motivation as well. And since then, he looked really good against Vicente Luque. And then also, he lost against Shavkat, but man, he had his moments. He landed some massive shots on Shavkat that I think would have knocked out like 75% of the division. Shavkat has an absolute chin on him. So I see why Ian Garry's the favorite. He should probably be the minute winner, the more skilled fighter. But Geoff Neal can hurt this guy. Geoff Neal can drop this guy. And Geoff Neal could potentially knock out Ian Garry as well. So as long as we get a motivated Geoff Neal, I feel like Geoff Neal could potentially touch the chin. I think the Geoff Neal finish only could be interesting. But I'm actually going to take Geoff Neal to potentially knock out Ian Garry here on Saturday. Hopefully humble him a little bit. But yeah, it should be a really fun fight here, Weezy.
Yeah, agreed. Geoff Neal is not a striker to be trifled with. This guy's left hand has got a ton of power, an absolute ton of it. And Ian Garry, 55% distance striking defense.
Oh,
I'm
Weezy.
sorry, Ian.
Yeah, Machado Garry.
Yeah, no, you disrespected the laws of marriage by taking your own wife's name. That's not supposed to happen. And then second of all, my guy is Stubborn Mick on Twitter. He messages me today. He goes, "Look at this shit. Look at this shit." You know what he sends me? It's a picture of Ian Machado Garry's ESPN profile. This prick has the Brazilian flag next to his name. You're from Ireland, jerk off. All right? You're from Ireland. Everybody knows you're from fucking Ireland. You're not Brazilian. You can't take your wife's name and then say that you're Brazilian. Brady, do you know any Brazilian men who have taken their wife's last name? If there are any in the chat, please let me know, because you're claiming to be Brazilian now. Everybody knows you're a liar. So I don't understand what the hell this guy is doing. Everything that comes out of his mouth is really starting to piss me off. But the guy's a phenomenal fighter, Brady. Yeah. He really is. You can talk as much shit about this guy that you want to talk about. His takedown defense is great. His anti-grappling is great. He's a solid grappler. His striking is precise. It's pretty. He throws 13.43 distance strike attempts per minute, only 8.93 coming back his way. So he throws a lot more volume than his opponents. He lands 3.46 more distance strikes per minute than his opponents do. So this guy is very precise, very accurate. But the 55% distance striking defense is definitely a concern, because Neal's kind of the opposite, right? Neal absorbs more strikes than he lands. He's got a negative 0.91 distance striking differential, 48% accuracy, which is very good, 60% defense, but he's landing a knockdown on 1.43% of the distance strikes that he lands. His left hand is nasty. He's got a tour. So this could play out where Ian Garry is the better minute winner. Neither one of these guys is attempting takedowns, Brady. 1.18 takedown attempts per 15 minutes for Geoff Neal, 0.89 for Garry. So this fight should take place at distance striking range. And Garry should absolutely be the minute winner. But we know that Geoff Neal lands that big left hand, and it could be lights out for anybody. So I think that big left hand for Neal is the equalizer in this fight. And I think that you're going to see Geoff lose the minutes of this fight up until if and when he lands that big left hand. That can really turn around this fight, because once Geoff lands on you, man, he gets precise and he will push to find that finish. And especially with, Geoff getting clipped on that DUI, and then Ian getting that shirt made with his mug shot on there, once again, his wife's idea, just kind of like changing his middle name to Machado now. So yeah, man, it's a great fight, because these are two extremely high level strikers. And I'd like to see Garry kind of start sitting down on his punches a little bit more, start to show a little bit more finishing urgency. But he doesn't need to do that, because he's so good at winning minutes at range, using that length, maintaining the distance, stopping any kind of takedown attempts that his opponents put at him, and just using all of those weapons he has at distance striking range to do more work and land more shots than his opponents do. But he's got to be real careful not to get clipped by Geoff Neal here, because this dude has still got very legitimate power. And we saw him land a couple big times on Shavkat. He's been in there against everybody, man. He's fought the better guys. His wins are a little bit better according to my metrics. So I love this fight. I think it's going to be a great striker versus striker matchup here between two high-level guys.
Yeah, 100%. Great fight. Garry is a pretty big favorite. Opened up minus 240, currently minus 210. Geoff Neal opened up plus 205, currently plus 180. I went to see what the Neal KO prop is, and it's only plus 235.
Plus 235 for the KO on Neal, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not giving you much there, man. That'll be better someplace else for sure. Wait, if you're on that number.
The finish only is not great as well. Geoff Neal finish only minus 120 or minus 110 finish only.
Yeah, that's not a bad look too. And you know what? I didn't mind the finish only for Henry Cejudo either. Because he's the more powerful guy, and Merab's not really a finisher. So
yeah, that's minus 115.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a pretty good look too. But yeah, Neal's got the power differential here, but is he going to land the big shot? That's the big question here.
Yeah, so maybe like a finish only for Geoff Neal, maybe plus money. I'm sure you'll get plus money on like DraftKings or FanDuel.
Probably.
Yeah. And then I think there's another finish only I was looking at as well. Oh, we'll talk about it. It's in the next fight actually, so we'll talk about that next. All right. There's a bunch of Ian Garry comments in the chat. I don't want to get into all that stuff. Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, like, dude, if he's watching Stat Diggers, man, now I think he is going to get clipped. It's like, come on, man, you got to fight this week. Can't be the real one, man. There's no way.
No, it's not. I don't think so. All right, Weezy. Now it's time for the What? I didn't know you actually did that. So Robert Whittaker versus TBA.
TBA coming in here, yeah.
The reason Weezy has this as TBA is because there is a very good chance that Paulo Costa is not fighting this week. There's just a lot of shenanigans going on with that guy, Paulo Costa. Like, it all started with that Israel Adesanya loss. Like, apparently he was drinking wine the night before. He shows up to that fight, and it was just a terrible performance. I know it was Adesanya, but just a terrible performance. He did look drunk in that fight. He looked drunk and got stopped in the second round by Adesanya. Blamed it on drinking wine and getting drunk the night before. Shenanigans. And then there was the Marvin Vettori fight was scheduled to be at middleweight, and then he goes and says, I'm not making middleweight. And then Vittori's like, okay, we'll make it a catchweight. And then he says, I can't make the catchweight. And then he's like, okay, let's fight at light heavyweight. And then they fight at light heavyweight because Paulo Costa doesn't want to cut the weight, is what he said. Like, shenanigans. And then more shenanigans as he goes out there, he fights Luke Rockhold, coming off of a massive layoff, like 40 years old, has been knocked out 6-7 times, and he goes to decision with Luke Rockhold. More shenanigans. And then apparently there was a fight that was signed, or there was a fight that was being promoted, and Paulo Costa said he didn't even sign for the fight, so the fight was off. And there's just so much shenanigans with this guy, man. So this fight probably isn't going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I ended up breaking it down on my prediction video. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to. But if this fight happens, for some reason it does happen, and Paulo Costa does show up, my pick is Robert Whittaker, just due to the fact that I think he actually cares. I think he actually wants to fight. I think he's the more skilled fighter out of the two. The only worry about Robert Whittaker is the chin, the durability. Because Paulo Costa, he is durable. He is super durable. That's one thing I'll give him. Whereas Robert Whittaker, not so much at this point of his career. So, like I was talking about, like the finish only for Paulo Costa, I think could be an interesting look. I think it's plus money. But my pick is Robert Whittaker by decision. If this fight happens, which probably doesn't happen.
Yeah, probably doesn't. I I remember when Costa showed up for the Vettori fight, and he said, like, I can't make the catch weight. It's like 205 or nothing. And I think when he said that, he thought that there was no way that Vettori was going to accept, but that's Marvin Vettori. He's going to accept, Marvin Vettori's not backing out of a fight. So Marvin was like, fine, 205, let's fight at 205. And it was a banger of a fight, man. I had money on Vettori, and I remember, Brady, that week, if Vettori won the main event, I was going to take down a DraftKings tournament, right? So like a minute or a round and a half into that fight, I was like, I cannot watch this anymore because, with Costa, all it takes is one. He just has to touch you once and, you could lose the fight. So I remember taking the dog for a super long walk and coming back, and the fight was still going on. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? But I saw that he won, took down the tournament, all was well. But yeah, I mean, like, this guy's not to be taken seriously anymore. like you say, he showed up for that Adesanya fight drunk. And then the Vettori fight, it didn't even look like he wanted to be there, even though he fought his ass off for the full 25 there. And then Luke Rockhold's not even like a real fight right now. I mean, Luke Rockhold was retired for like 4 years before that fight. So I think that's the only reason he even showed up for that fight, was probably because he thought Luke wasn't going to show up. And then Luke did show up and gave him problems. And that's bad. I mean, like, he's the only guy not to finish Luke Rockhold in a win, So, yeah, who do you think Whittaker fights when Costa pulls out of this? Who's taking a Robert the Reaper Whittaker fight on a couple of days' notice?
I don't know. Because you can't give him some bum at this point of his career. And then
I mean, Val Woodburn's already booked today, So, like, I mean, like, who are you going to call, to take a Robert Whittaker fight on short notice? But, like, you got to believe that there are going to be some fighters who are like, I better be there that week, because we know that Paulo's not showing up, or he's not showing up at 185. I could tell you that. I mean, is he getting on the scale at 186 or better this week, Brady? What would the line on that be?
I think the line for him not even to get to the scale is like minus 120 right now. I think there's some value there.
This guy's not a fighter anymore, man. He's a spokesman for hair replacement surgery. He's probably an acai spokesman, and the guy looks like he hangs out at the beach and just, I mean, like, the guy looks like he does really well with the ladies. I don't know why he needs to do this anymore. And I don't think he will.
No.
Next fight.
I don't think so either. I was looking at his Tapology. Just a ton of canceled bouts. Canceled bout versus Robert Whittaker back in 2021. Costa illness. Costa withdrew against Jared Cannonier. The fight with Vettori almost fell off. Probably should have fell off. Had a pullout against, I think, Luke Rockhold. Finally fought Luke Rockhold. And then there was that whole thing where people were saying that Ikram Alaskarov was going to fight Paulo Costa. The fight was never even signed. And then they got rescheduled. And then he was supposed to fight Hamzat Chimaev, and then Costa pulls out with an elbow injury. And then now he's expected to fight Robert Whittaker. Expected, but probably not.
Yeah, this is and I'm surprised Whittaker even took this fight. Like, I would have laughed if they called me and were like, "Oh, so I'm supposed to, like, pretend for the next 2 months of my life that this guy's going to show up to fight me on Saturday, on Saturday, February 17th." In front of all these people, because I'm going to prepare for it. I'm going to prepare, I'm going to pay coaches. I'm going to have a training camp. I have to fly from Australia all the way to the States for this fight. And now this guy's not going to show up potentially. So I don't know, man. This is a wild one.
Yeah, it is. So Whittaker versus TBA. We'll have to talk about it more throughout the week. See who's going to show up and step in on short notice after Paulo Costa pulls out. All right, Weezy, it is time for the main event of UFC 298. Before we get into it, if you guys can, please smash the like button. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Check out the Pub Sports Radio Pick'ems contest on pubsportsradio.com. It is 100% free to enter. Tapology type format. Pick the fighter, the method, and the round, and you get $100 to first, week in and week out. Check it out. Free money there. All right. Great main event here. Alexander Volkanovski going against Ilia Topuria. Got Volkanovski, 35 years old, 5'6" with a 71-inch reach. Topuria, 27 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. Topuria, 8 years younger, 1-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Volkanovski is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win against Korean Zombie. Decision win against Max Holloway. Decision loss against Islam Makhachev, knockout win against Yair Rodriguez, and then a knockout loss against Islam Makhachev his last time out. As far as Topuria, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Obviously, he's undefeated. Knockout win against Damon Jackson, knockout win against Ryan Hall, knockout win against Jai Herbert, submission win against Bryce Mitchell, and then a decision win against Josh Emmett in his last time out, went the full 5 rounds. So this is a massive, massive step up of competition here for Ilia Topuria. I'm a big Topuria fan. I know a lot of people are big Topuria fans. I've been on him in every single fight, including his debut against Salah, where he was an underdog, believe it or not, against Alal. And he puts himself on the map in that fight, goes out there, looks really good in the first, 2.5 rounds, slows down towards the end, but looks really good. Dominant win against Yusuf Zalal. Goes out there, knocks out Damon Jackson, Ryan Hall, and Jai Herbert, and then takes a big step up in competition from those guys, beats Bryce Mitchell by sub, and then takes another step up and beats Josh Emmett, goes the full 25 rounds, answers a lot of questions, looks incredible doing so. I was looking at those scorecards from the Emmett Topuria fight, and Chris Lee had it 50-42 for Topuria. Like, off the top of my head, I can't remember a 50-42 ever. I mean, that was an incredible beatdown, great performance. But he's taken another step up in here against Alexander Volkanovski. So I talked about it on my main card prediction video. There's like a tier, and we were talking about the featherweight division. And tier number 1, you have Alexander Volkanovski, and tier number 2, there's a massive drop off. And in tier number 2, you got Max Holloway. Because he's beat Max Holloway 3 different times, who's the second best featherweight. And not only did he beat him 3 different times, he dominated him in the last fight. I thought he was on his way to being the first person to ever knock out Max Holloway in that third fight. So that's tier number 2. And tier number 3, there you'll have your Calvin Katers, your Arnold Allens, your Josh Emmets, your Mosvar Evloevs, guys like that. Rodriguez's, Brian Ortega's, that's tier number 3. So Topuria, you look at his career, these first 4 wins, they mean nothing to me. Beating Yusuf Zalal, who's now cut, means nothing. I know people like Damon Jackson. Beating Damon Jackson means nothing to me. Ryan Hall, come on. Jai Herbert, I know some people actually like Jai Herbert. That win means nothing to me. Bryce Mitchell, good win. Josh Emmett, although 39, good win. But if he beats Alexander Volkanovski, in my opinion, that's a big upset in my mind. Going out there and beating arguably the featherweight GOAT and Alexander Volkanovski. If he beats Volkanovski, that's a major upset in my head. But the odds don't reflect that being a major upset. This is about a pick'em here, which is kind of wild. And what I think is influencing this line is a couple things. Volkanovski is coming off of a knockout loss not too long ago. Volkanovski is somewhat getting up there. I mean, he's only 35, but there's a whole 35 and up curse narrative. And the curse narrative is between flyweight and welterweight in title fights. I think fighters are like 2-28 in title fights if you're 35 and up. So I think that's pushing the line. And then on top of that, the whole Volkanovski is a drunk narrative, which was an actual narrative. I've seen a lot of people say that already, and it's only Monday. Volkanovski is a drunk. He's not taking this serious anymore. So I think that's kind of swaying the line. But I mean, Topuria hasn't really proven much to me as of yet. So we'll see if he can go out there and pull off this upset. But I got to go Volkanovski just based off of he's proven so much more. Like he's fought so many much better fighters. Max Holloway 3 times, Jose Aldo, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega. The list goes on and on and on with Volkanovski. And then he loses to Islam Makhachev on 10 days short notice, drinking every day. Gets knocked out, and now all of a sudden this guy's a bum? I don't think so, Weezy. So I like Volkanovski, and just seeing a minus 120 number next to Volkanovski's name against anybody in the featherweight division is just unheard of. It's just unheard of. So Weezy, what are your thoughts about this main event?
Yeah, first of all, Alexander Volkanovski is not a drunk. He's just Australian. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a very big difference between being a drunk and being Australian, and Volkanovski's Australian. It's just how it goes. And if you guys haven't seen the video, the Volk's Too Old video that he did on Twitter, several people retweeted it. I retweeted it a few days ago. It is just an absolute comedy masterpiece. It's him like acting like an old person, talking about like, I'm not too old to fight anymore, and the fight that he gets into with his neighbor Beverly about the fence being on his property is just it's absolute comedy gold. But yeah, man, I mean, like, I think that this is an opportunity, Brady, to take advantage of some recency bias here, because after the first Makhachev fight, when Volkanovski came up to 155 to fight what a lot of people were saying was the best fighter in the UFC at the time, and then that fight goes a full 5 rounds, and it's almost a coin flip when it comes to the judges' scorecards. I mean, everybody was saying, like, look, this guy Volk is the best to ever do it. I mean, like, just an incredible record at the UFC level, still undefeated at featherweight. Nobody's beaten this guy at featherweight yet. So, I think that this is just a great opportunity to take care of some recency bias here. Why? Because, Ilia Topuria, his best win is Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett is, not a great striker. He's got a lot of power, but Alexander Volkanovski is a master of minute winning at striking distance range. Look at that distance striking differential for this guy. Positive 2.19, right? That's amazing when you think about the guys that he's been in there. He spent 75 minutes in the octagon with Max Holloway, the best distance striker, differential guy that the featherweight division had seen up until that point. And he's landing 6.36 per minute and only absorbing 4.17 is Volkanovski at range. 53% accuracy, 61% defense. The power advantage here is on the Topuria side. He's a very big hitter. But, Alexander Volkanovski we're talking about a guy who's been knocked down 4 times in 15 fights, and he's faced the best. You add up the records of the guy that Volkanovski has faced, and there are 160 wins and 69 losses. While you add it up for Topuria, his opponents are 32 and 18. Just the level of experience that these guys have fought is a mile apart. Topuria, though, exactly. The Go Flamingo knows, dude. Go Flamingo knows. And, the New Zealanders are right there with them. Believe me, New Zealand's not getting shorted by anyone when it comes to their alcohol consumption, too. Those guys are professionals down under. We learned from them. But Topuria's grappling is what I really want to see if he can get his grappling game going here, because that's where I think he looks like a favorite, This guy's grappling game has always, in my opinion, been the best part of his MMA skill set, because he is scary on the feet. He can throw with such reckless abandon on the feet because you have to worry about the grappling threat from him. But even in the Emmett fight, Brady, this guy didn't get a takedown until the 5th round. And when he did, he mauled him on top. He absolutely destroyed him. But he didn't wrestle. He was fine just kind of staying at range with him, which I thought was interesting. With Volkanovski, it's just really hard to win minutes against this guy at distance striking range. It's really hard to win moments against him, too. So what, if you're betting Topuria, I'm wondering how you think he wins this fight. Are you thinking that he wins the striking exchanges? Are you thinking that he wrestles enough to get ground control and get to dominant positions in 2 or 3 of the 5 rounds, when we even saw Makhachev struggle to do that against him and win big minutes there? And Makhachev is twice the size of Ilia Topuria. Another thing I want to see is Topuria on that scale. We've seen him, Brady, have really tough weight cuts down to 145. We've seen him miss weight. We even saw him fight Jai Herbert at 155 because Dana was pissed at him for fucking up 2 straight weight cuts. I'm going to bet Volkanovski. I'm betting him, and I will be able to lose that bet if I do lose it and say, you know what, man, I had my money on the greatest featherweight of all time, a guy who's never lost a featherweight fight in the UFC. He was going up against the hyped guy whose best win was Josh Emmett. And, and if I lose, I lose. If the people are right about this being Topuria's time right now, then I lose. But I'm putting my money on the best featherweight to ever do it. Guy that beat the brakes off of everybody who was even close. He cleaned out the fucking division to the point where that he had to take 2 fights against Islam Makhachev. The second one was 7 weeks after he had elbow surgery, where the recovery time from the surgery was 6 weeks. He's drinking. He takes the fight on short notice. And then all of a sudden, everybody thinks that Alexander Volkanovski is washed. He's not washed. He's still the greatest to ever do it. And if Topuria wants to be the greatest to ever do it, he's going to have to beat this dude on Saturday. And I don't think he's gonna, man. I think Alexander Volkanovski is going to do what he always does, which is look like the best featherweight on the planet.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a show me spot, because beating Josh Emmett, I like Josh Emmett, but it's a good win. But he didn't have to go through Arnold Allen Calvin Kattar, Moser Evloev. And by the way, he was supposed to fight Evloev, but that fight didn't even happen. I wanted to see that fight.
Because of weight cutting issues, if I'm not mistaken, Brady.
Yeah. Yep. He didn't fight Brian Ortega. Didn't fight Yair Rodriguez. Didn't fight Max Holloway. He didn't pass the Max Holloway test. So kind of skipping the line a little bit here. I think right now, yeah, like I would have liked to see him fight a couple of these different fighters. So yeah, if he beats Volkanovski, incredible win, and that would be a big upset in my opinion. But like I said, the odds don't reflect that. It's about a pick 'em. Volkanovski opened up -170. It's been nothing but Topuria money, and he got as low as like -108. There has been some money come back in on Volkanovski as of late. He's now -130, and Topuria is +110. In terms of the total, it's set at 3.5, the over 3.5 -130, the under 3.5 +100. The fight goes +150. The fight doesn't go -180. I don't really like anything in terms of totals, but yeah, that Volk money line's sticking out. I'm curious to see where it goes throughout the week.
Me too. I think we kind of seen the bottom already. I think it's just gotten ridiculous here. I mean, just on paper. I'm just talking about on paper. Like you said, he's skipping the line. How do you get this is a 38-year-old Josh Emmett. You beat the brakes off of him for 5 rounds, and now you're title material. Not saying Topuria is not. I think Topuria is a phenomenal prospect. Ton of power. Really, really underrated grappling game. Super high level. I think he's very dangerous, and I love watching him fight. But it might be too much too soon. And this is going to be the last chance, Brady. The last fucking chance that you're going to get a guy like Alexander Volkanovski. Because if he goes out there and he beats the brakes off of Topuria, you're paying $350 against his next opponent. Yeah. So you might as well get in the pool now.
Yeah. Anybody at featherweight, exactly. He's a big favorite against anybody at featherweight. He's already beat all these guys. He's already beat Ortega. He's already beat Yair. He's already beat Holloway. He's already beat everybody in the featherweight division besides Topuria. So we'll see if he's able to pass Topuria here. But yeah, should be a fun fight. Can't wait to watch it. We did it. We went through all 12 fights. Any final thoughts on the card? And also let the people know your plans for some content for UFC 298.
Man, this is such a great card. I'm really looking forward to this one. I've got tomorrow, I'm doing 2 shows. I'm going to be on Couch Warriors show 2 hours before Just the Tip. So we're going to do 8 o'clock Central Time for the Couch Warriors UFC breakdown show. Then we're going to do Just the Tip with Uncle Weezy, 10 o'clock Central Time, same channel as always. Wednesday night, I'll be showing up for Ask Weezy as well, so you guys can ask me some very poignant questions about the statistics, analytics, benchmarks of these fights so that we can find some props to bet on here. And then Greasy 4-leg parlay on Friday. All the usual great stuff that you've come to know from my channel and my content throughout the last few years. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to stacking cash tickets like flapjacks on this phenomenal UFC 298 card, Brady. This is going to be a great week for us fight fans.
Yeah, but it's a breath of fresh air, going from some of these Apex cards as of late to a card like this. That's very good. And this card doesn't even compare to like 299. 299 smokes this card, and then 300 smokes this card as well. But this card's still really, really good. I'm looking forward to it 100%. Looking forward to this title fight. Looking forward to seeing who Whittaker is going to fight on short notice as well. So that should be fun. But yeah, we did it. Thank you guys for hanging out. Like on your way out, subscribe, check me out on DFS by the numbers. I did just post my full card breakdown video, did a main event deep dive. I'll be getting out some prize picks, DraftKings, and betting content throughout the week as well. Best of luck for UFC 298, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching. See you.